Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to an all-new rendition of the League Zero Formula Series, as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing, and proudly presented by none other than INCA Salsa. That's right ladies and gentlemen, 2026 is here and a happy new year to you all, and we are back for another season of full throttle frantic action in our super formula machines. The dust has only recently settled from season 16, and what a season it was, and we are back for season 17. A good round of 9 rounds await us. It's a short, it's a condensed, but it's going to be an absolutely superb season, no doubt about it. And we're bringing you all the racing action as if it were live today in this post-round recorded broadcast from our season opener at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Located on the island of Phillip Island, named after what is a local hero in Australia, this circuit owes a lot of respect and regard to the fact that whilst it's not raced in open wheel Formula Series too often, when it is a very tricky circuit to get right. As it weaves and winds its way through the local hilly terrain, it is a circuit that over 2.76 miles will see our drivers have to navigate 12 corners that are fast flying and wide open at the apex. It means around here being smooth and quick are key in equal measure, and it's going to be a great test to see how our drivers get underway today as they look to set their sights high for the championship ahead. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast as you tune in tonight on YouTube at Paul Walsh Productions. In the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, and I'm back in the commentary booth once again after an extended hiatus from the League Zero Formula Series, but I'm very happy to be back, and thank you to all the organisers for letting me come back and give me the opportunity to present you all the racing action. Now, because this is a post-round broadcast, the racing itself occurred as of yesterday, on Thursday, the 8th of January 2026. We're bringing it to you as if it were live today, on Friday, the 9th of January in this recorded broadcast. So don't fret, there are no spoilers in this broadcast, unless you choose to put some spoilers in the YouTube chat as this premieres tonight. So therefore, in the commentary booth, we do not know what happens, whether it be in the practice session that is currently ongoing, nor in the upcoming qualifying session, or in our 2 races. So therefore, it's completely raw and new as we get set and ready to go here for this season opener. In terms of our schedule, times in Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, UTC -5, as we can see, we're getting underway with our opening qualifying session of the season at what will be 9:15 this evening, after which we head straight to the grid for the first of our 2 races, the 11-lap sprint, and then it's a quick reprieve before we then make our way back to the grid once again for what will be the fast and absolutely intense 34-lap feature race. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's make our way into this season and let's introduce the calendar. Because as we can see, we have got a 9-round calendar, not quite as long as other seasons, but that's the way the holidays have fallen. But what we can see, we open up at the Phillip Island circuit. After this round, we then make our way all the way across the Pacific Ocean and all the way up to the US of A for the Miami International Autodrome, the young circuit that only arrived in Formula 1 as of 2022, and it's only recently arrived on the iRacing simulator, and therefore we're going to give our drivers the opportunity to take it on in full force and splendour. After that, on the 22nd of January, it will be at the Brazilian circuit of the Autodrome Jose Carlos Pache that welcomes all of our competitors, and they'll be very eager and excited to take it on the classic Formula 1 circuit, but they then make their way all the way back to the US of A for Road Atlanta, or Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta as it's known in full by title sponsorship, and on the 29th of January that's going to be a round to behold as all our drivers there look to try and negotiate its undulations in full attack mode. Then at the midpoint of the season we head to Germany for the Nürburgring Grosser Preisstrecke, or known as the Grand Prix circuit, and we're taking specifically to the Grand Prix layout with the slower version of the Vidal chicane. That'll be on the 5th of February, and then we stay in Europe and make our way to Italy for the Autodrome Nacional Monza. Oh goodness me, Turn 1 and Monza, well, they're synonymous with chaos and carnage, but for our League Zero racers, surely it'll be absolutely smooth sailing. That'll be on the 12th of February, and then in round number 7, we make our way to Spain for the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya, as its historic layout welcomes our drivers, and then for our final 2 rounds, it's firstly a trap back to the US of A for what will be at the Circuit of the Americas, and it'll be the test of our drivers to do the Texas 2-step as they take on the 20-corner circuit. That'll be on the 26th of February, and then we bring the curtain down at the infamous, everybody's favourite Belgian circuit after all. It is the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, and in the Ardennes Forest, we will be crowning our drivers and teams champions for Season 17. That will be on the 5th of March. So it's a long story ahead, even if we haven't got as many rounds as normal. And as we make our way into this story, let's tell you a little bit about our host circuit for today. It is the Grand Prix layout of the Phillip Island Circuit, located near the village of Ventnor in the state of Victoria in Australia. And intriguingly, for those who are interested in a little bit of geography, Phillip Island, most of its locations are named after the Isle of Wight locations in the United Kingdom. That's why you do have the village of Ventnor, which is in reference to a village in the United Kingdom on the Isle of Wight. And you'll find that the more you look around the map of Phillip Island, you'll see many a reference to the Isle of Wight. But putting that aside, we're here for motorsport. So let's talk about motorsport. And what we need to talk about is the fact that a big thank you firstly to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator on which we're hosting this series, but the brilliant track maps that come with it. And this track map is two-dimensional, so it doesn't show you all the elevation changes ram-packed into its distance. But what it does show you, however, is the intriguing combination of bends with long extended sweepers contradicted by what is very sharp hairpins. And for our drivers, they'll know there's plenty of opportunity to go too wide around here, if not three wide, as the circuit is wide open. It's no wonder why the likes of V8 supercars have raced here in the past, but also MotoGP as well, where you may have found 3 or 4 riders going too wide in towards turn number 1. But as our drivers negotiate those long sweeping bends, they'll have to find themselves building that momentum and getting into the rhythm, as otherwise they may come unstuck. And when you go wide here, it's very quickly a case of going onto the grass and being pulled very far away from the circuit, because most of the grass around this circuit slopes away from the tarmac, and therefore recovery is very challenging. And our drivers will find that none more so over the back section from turns 4 all the way to turn 10. A hairpin it starts, a hairpin it ends, where there all drivers need to be absolutely clinical and precise when it comes to staying on the tarmac, and they'll need to do it for lap after lap, and the laps are going to flow very quickly around here, with the lap time being approximately only a 1 minute 12 or a 1 minute 11 for the very best in qualifying we expect. But as we come into this season, a quick reminder of the rules, and we have got some slight rule changes to talk about as well. Car setup wise, this is a fixed setup series. It remains that way, with setup provided to our drivers ahead of each and every round of racing. Car fuel loads, they are restricted to 40%. Qualifying wise, the session shall be open, so over what will be the 15-minute period, our drivers will only have the 15 minutes and they'll all be out on circuit. I emphasise they'll only have the 15 minutes because there is no overtime at the end of the qualifying session. As soon as the clock strikes 15 minutes, that's it. That's your lot. You have to get the lap done within that time, so there'll be a bit more pressure. They don't get a last gasp or a last chance saloon. As for our races, they'll commence by a standing start as an edition of the League Zero Formula Series, with drive-through penalty being awarded at 17 instant points should our drivers get to that point. The grid for the feature race, this is new for this season. It shall be set based on the finishing positions of the sprint race. Well, that's old. However, where we invert the grid from has changed. Previously, it's been a top 5 inversion. Now it will be a top 6 inversion, just to make things a little bit more diverse at the very front of the field and give an opportunity to those who finish a little bit further back inside the top 10 to chase after pole position in the feature race. Otherwise, as per usual, there are no mandatory pit stop requirements in the races. If our drivers choose to come in, they choose to come in of their own volition, for whether it's repair work, a new set of tyres, or fuel. And that's the rules and regulations recapped. So without further ado, let's make our way back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, and take a look at our stars as they make the way around here in this final practice warm-up session. We've got 7 minutes of it left, and we do see Finley Fitzsimmons here roaring his way around in the MSR purple machine. As we do have a little bit of time, it's only appropriate then, I feel, that we do need to introduce what is some of the biggest names on the grid, albeit they're all stars here, all 23 of our drivers who've made the way all the way to Australia. It's been quite the trek, it must be said, and we also need to say a big thank you not just to our title sponsor, INCA Salsa, for sponsoring the series, but also our supporting sponsors of MSR Performance Engineering and also Team Goon Squad. We'll talk a little bit more about them later on today. But with regards to our drivers out there at the moment, well, perhaps the biggest name of them all is this person, the number 1 car for DDK Racing Team, as he parks up in the pit lane there, and in fact I think he's going to tow to the pits very shortly. That was for a brief moment Elliot Court, and the reason why he's so significant is because he is your defending champion from season 16 after 11 rounds of racing that season. In fact, we can see him there parked up in the pits now, albeit the camera a little bit distant, but he's your defending champion, having taken the championship, his first title in his time in the League Zero Formula Series, with 306 points to the 245 points of Elliot Rolls. Now both Court and Rolls, you'll see them both running the same livery this season. They are both representing DDK Racing Team. Last season, I do believe they did the same. However, the team were not registered in the Team's Championship. They were a privateer outfit, but they are fully and formally registered for this season. So therefore, you can imagine Court and Rolls will both be looking to try and establish themselves as early favourites, although Rolls would like to take a championship back from his teammates. That way they're one apiece. But on top of that as well, they'll be going for the Team's Championship crown. And in terms of who your team's champions were from Season 16, well, that was MSR Purple, and they're back on the grid once again. They took the championship crown with 54 points, and we look forward to seeing the MSR Purple drivers out there, and they are going to give it their all. And in fact, I think we do have a couple of them on the actual circuit at the moment, trying to put in the laps, and one of them being none other than Finley Fitzsimmons, and therefore MSR Purple will be defending their rights. And there are 2 MSR teams on the grid this season, the other one being MSR Green, and the best of luck to them in their campaigns. In terms of the runner-up last season for what was the team's championship was Black Squid Racing, and INCA Salsa Racing finished third in a very closely contested run to second place between the 2 teams, as we do see Fitzsimmons making his way down into the pit lane. But we also look here to Demont Dotson, as Dotson heads all the way around the back section of the lap, and that livery is giving me vibes of what is Brawn GP from 2009, although it's not quite the same, but I think many of you agree where I'm coming from there with regards to the white and the light green. But Dotson is looking quite quick in this practice session at the moment, currently 12th fastest, a whole second off of Fitzsimmons' highest time, albeit 1 minute 11.734. It's one thing to do it in practice where there's a bit less pressure on, it's another thing to do it when the pressure's entirely on, when we do go into qualifying. So I have to wait and see whether Fitzsimmons is going to be the driver to beat here today, or whether some drivers have decided not to reveal their full hand right now, and instead wait until a little bit later. Now, in terms of champion drivers, of course, we did mention that Elliot Court took his first title last season, but we do have a few names out there who have had previous titles in the past, albeit are they on the grid today? I'm not 100% certain. I don't think so. Of course, the person who has the most titles to their name is none other than Raymond Ray Aguilar, and, well, he has 5 titles to Jaden Callaway's 4. Neither of them are here. Meanwhile, we do have 2 titles apiece to Russell Soto, the first ever champion in the League Zero Formula Series, albeit he doesn't have himself on the grid today. Finley Fitzsimmons, of course, who we saw a little bit earlier, and here he is again. He is a 2-time champion, and he's also in the company of Adam Merchant, who is a 2-time champion. But Fitzsimmons and none other than Court are the only drivers who have titles to their name on the grid currently in the Drivers' Championship, so therefore there are plenty of opportunities for either them to add another title to their crown. Alternatively, a new name will be crowned champion at the end of this season, of course, ladies and gentlemen. That's what keeps it so interesting and intriguing, in the fact that we have got so many drivers out there looking to go for that title, and it is not easy, I can tell you that. But also, we do need to look to this man, Arturo Mayorga, a very quick driver in his own right, but also we need to say a big thank you to him, because what you're going to be able to see in this broadcast today is the fact that even though we are covering an iRacing replay file, normally we wouldn't be able to bring you replays of events that happen in the races. We'd have to try and catch it all as it's covered. However, thanks to this man, his wonderful piece of software that he developed with us last year, or he developed for us, we should say, last year, when I previously had the pleasure of working with Arturo Mayorga. Well, it has worked a treat, and it has enabled us to be able to provide replays of events midway through the race when we do these post-round broadcasts. So a huge thank you to Arturo. We are eternally grateful for this software, and it really means right now, whether we cover it live or as if it were live, it's practically the same raw live viewing experience for you guys and girls at home. Well, that's what we're trying to do, at least. But as Mayorga makes his way on through, I'm currently 14th in this practice session right now, and with 2 minutes left on the clock, I think his target is going to be to see how high he can fly when we do go into qualifying. So he has chased down top 10s over the course of previous seasons, and right now, understandably, I think he's just waiting to see what's possible here today. Because, of course, it's 2026, and Gareth McAllister's car there is already in a significant number of pieces. That's at the entry to turn number 2, albeit I think he's just waiting the car at the moment with the front suspension completely collapsed on both sides. Don't know how he's been able to achieve that. We won't quite get a replay of that at the moment. That definitely is not the way you want to do things. And from him, we then look to Leo Damar. And, well, the number 21 driver here, looking good. Very, very spicy livery on that car, it must be said. In full of colours, the light blue all the way through to the pink and white around the car. And, well, if he doesn't win the racing today, he's definitely going to win some hearts there with regards to adoration of his livery. But then again, not to be unfair, we can look at all these cars and wonderful liveries all the way up and down the field, including none other here than from Sergei Porok, who is making his way around in 20th place at the moment with a minute left on the clock in practice. He's not too far away from going into qualifying. Nobody is now, as he takes a trip into the pit lane. They're all starting to fall silent out here. understandably so. I think nobody else wants to put themselves under any more pressure now. Jace Mayer decides to trim the weeds a little bit on the exit of turn number 2, but he pulls aside, and then Shahi's ahead as well. The Sri Lankan driver, he's one of the fan favourites, and a very colourful livery that I do believe in dedication to Sri Lankan colours, and we look forward to seeing what he's going to be able to do, because whether he's racing in open wheel or closed wheel format, I'll tell you one thing, so long as it's got 4 wheels in the iRacing simulator, he is a very quick and capable driver. But these Super Formula machines, whether it is the Honda or the Toyota, they can bring either one our drivers. Well, these Super Formula machines are absolutely tenaciously tricky to drive, so credit where it's due, because I can tell you one thing, I can't drive one of these, or I'd have to drive it essentially with stabilisers on, or about 50% of the pace it can achieve. But right now, everyone here is going full 100%, because without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for qualifying. Who's going to take pole position in the maiden qualifying session of the season? Let's find out. So qualifying gets underway. It's 15 minutes and it's go, go, go for all of our drivers as they all make the way down to the end of the pit lane and make their way out as quickly as they can. Elliot Roll has been the very first one to do so here. And what can we expect in qualifying? Well, firstly, how important is qualifying, I hear you ask? Qualifying well at Phillip Island, it is relatively important, particularly in the higher downforce machinery. And these Super Formula 2023 machines, well, they've got plenty of downforce to go alongside what is their 2-litre 4-cylinder engines that pack the best part of 550 brake horsepower. That's right, they are incredibly quick machines here. And keep in mind that right now, in qualifying mode, they don't have the ability to use the overtake or the push-to-pass button. As Rolzo goes very wide out the hairpin of turn number 4, brings himself back onto the road. He won't want to be making that mistake again in a hurry, I can assure you of that, because that's not a mistake you want to keep doing. You don't want to get dirt on the tyres, because otherwise it will take several laps to get that dirt off, and very gradually you just wear the compound down, and that's not a nicety. Because then, as you go deeper and deeper into the qualifying session, you find yourself battling with the constant, which is time, and time is important to get a good lap in. So, with qualifying being relatively important, because the amount of width on the circuit, you do want to get yourself up towards the top 10 if you can, but overtaking is feasible around here. But as we were alluding to, the fact that all these cars are high downforce, or running the dirty air of another car can prove to be very difficult, particularly with these long sweeping bends. But that's why you have the hairpins to contradict them, and that's why you need to be brave on the brakes if you want to make some magic happen. As Finley Fitzsimmons comes across that timeline, the initial outlaps are being registered. We will see even more time start to come in very shortly, and as they do, we'll then start to see a more accurate description of where our drivers sit and pace. But right now, Fitzsimmons is looking to be the quickest of them all out there on the outlap alone, but then again, an outlap is just an outlap here. It's not really a race, but as Fitzsimmons heads in towards turn number 4 this time, well, I think he's absolutely right now, taking the mantra, which is the fastest in practice by the best part of 4 attempts. I can be the fastest in qualifying by an even greater margin. But Demont Dotson, well, keep your eyes out for him, because I have the feeling that right now, the team behind the number 47, they've been holding a little bit back in the practice session, given the fact he's had quite a good outlap. He's got plenty of track in front of him as well to work with, and he hasn't got a distant toe. Now, how do you want to go about qualifying then? That's the next question. Do you want to pick up a slipstream, or do you want to do it in clear air? Ideally, you want to try and do it in clear air, as Dotson repeats what we saw from one of our drivers early on, where Rolls got it wrong at turn number 4, and Dotson did the same, a bit too eager on the throttle pedal. But the reason you want to be in clear air for the most part of the lap is because of the fact you've got so many quick direction changes around here, and if you run in the dirty air of another car, what it causes is essentially the front end to lose downforce. It lightens the front of the car, and you lose the ability to turn in as aggressively, so the car starts to understeer as the rear pushes through the corner from behind. But meanwhile, you want to get that toe, particularly coming out to turn 11 onto the start-finish straight. That will be worth at least 2 attempts along there, so it is a bit of a give to take. If you can run behind another driver all the way through the lap, and you're prepared to do the dirty air, you will gain on average about 3 attempts over the whole lap, but that does require you to be absolutely pinpoint precise perfect, so it is going to be swings and roundabouts here. And I suspect several drivers will look to try and qualify well in clear air, and then towards the end of the session try and find somebody to work with if they haven't got a teammate out on circuit. But Gareth McAllister, teammate to Arturo Mayorga, making his way on round right now, and the INCA Salsa machine looking quite quick out there, albeit 16th at the moment. I think we haven't quite seen the very best from McAllister, and we will see how he comes together a bit later on. As Carlos Balinas sets his first time on the board, it's 1 minute 14.002. He's 1.8 seconds off the overall pole time of Fitzsimmons Fitzsimmons, a 1:12.159. I think Finley Fitzsimmons is trying to go even quicker here, and let's jump on board for a flying lap. So making his way in towards turn 1, full throttled at 183 miles an hour, turning in there, slight lift of the throttle, if that, and then coming into turn number 2, again chucking the car into the corner, dropping down 2 gears as he does so, off throttle, a little bit of brake, and now full throttle as he blasts out of the corner, in towards the long sweeper at turn number 3. It's going to be flat out here all the way around, as he now gets ready to go onto the brakes, and hard onto the brakes he goes in towards turn number 4. Through that right-hander, and now emerging out the corner for Fitzsimmons. Now it's going to be about the much tighter middle sector. From right into left here, coming all the way on around through turn number 6, and now heading up the rise as rapidly as he can. But he does so right now for Fitzsimmons. What can he do here? Because it's going to be right into a long left that never seems to end. And from 6th gear, entering at 167 miles an hour, losing a little bit of speed there as he drops down to 5th gear in the process, and then hard on the brakes all the way down to 2nd gear, exits out the right-hander, and now in towards the left-hander of turn number 11, and here it's about balancing the throttle in 3rd gear, then up into 4th, then up into 5th, and now round through the final corner he goes. It's an absolutely smooth and composed lap from Finley Fitzsimmons, but what will it be as he heads towards the timing line this time? Is it going to be an improvement? The answer is not quite. His 1:11.885 from the previous lap still stands, but Fitzsimmons is still attacking this. He's giving it everything, and we look forward to seeing whether he can get anything more on the board before all is said and done, because Fitzsimmons definitely right now putting himself together as best he possibly can, but I can understand if a few other drivers here might also have a plan in mind. Looking to Elliot Court, meanwhile, he's carrying across that timeline, your defending champion. 3rd fastest at the moment. He does improve to a 1:12.359 behind Fabian Sanchez, and Sanchez has been able to split the 2 big names. And well, where is Sanchez? There he is out on circuit with 9 minutes still left on the clock. He is looking right now to be in a bit of a good position, is Sanchez, but will it be all for naught as he goes a little bit deeper into this session? Well, we will see in due course, because it does seem as though, at least for now, Sanchez has got some pace out there, but one would wonder whether perhaps he fancies his chances of getting even closer to the very top of the timing tower. It's not easy, to be fair, to get to the top. They normally say you've got to rock and roll, but right now for Fabian Sanchez, it's going to be more about the roll than the rock around these corners as he comes across this timing line. And well, speaking of rock and roll, Sanchez does improve to a 1:12.240. Of course, Australia known for a good number of rock and metal bands over the years, including none other than the great of AC/DC, and also arguably some would say they're a tribute act, some would say they are a sequel act to AC/DC, Airborne. And well, if you've never listened to them and you are a bit of a rock and metal fan, definitely give Airborne a go if you've tried AC/DC. And well, I've never quite asked the musical preferences of our drivers. I'll have to ask them that at some point over the season and try to feed back to you, ladies and gentlemen. Leave that with me. That'll be a little bit of trivia that I'll try and pick up as the season goes on. But as time comes on and we go away from music right now to the musical chairs of trying to take pole position, Shahi Zahir leaps his way up into 9th place, a 1:12.604. Good effort from him in the number 10. And I think Zuhair right now starting to get the bit here as he glides his way through turn number 2. The rear of the car coming slightly loose there. Leo Del Mar jumps up to 2nd place off camera on a 1:12.182. So we're starting to see some drivers now gain confidence, but also notably, I think a lot of drivers have got their banker lap in as a small lock up there for the car in front of Del Mar. That being, oh, that's off the road there, and that is Catherine Sweat, who's gone flying sideways off the road at turn number 2 and has towed immediately to the pits 9. That car's not going to be recoverable from the gravel trap unless she takes a line to the pits. So therefore, for Sweat, an easy mistake to make, and a big costly one at that, because now the car will be in the pit lane for a bit of time. But Sweat will take a look at the car, make sure that a new set of tyres are going on, and then go back out there surely, because 21st place at the moment means there's going to be a lot of work to be done for the number 28 driver when they do go into the race. But from them, meanwhile, we look to Arturo Mayorga, and then we look back to Xavier Zainav, currently the lowest place driver, 1.7 seconds off the overall pole time, but just to break into the top 20 needs to find another half a second. However, intriguingly, look at those times, and what you'll notice here is how close it is with this qualifying session. This circuit is one that naturally generates some very close qualifying times. Fitzsimmons really is the anomaly at the top of the timing tower by 3 tenths over everybody else, And then from Leo Del Mar in second all the way through to 10th place driver of Austin Thomas, well, you've only got a margin there of what is half a second if that. That's how tight it is. And Jack Mundy there decides to take a bit of a trip to the gravel, but he immediately now gradually escorts himself back on. Oh, careful, Jack. That's not easy. There's changing grip levels there as you go from gravel to grass to a bit of run-down grass and then finally the curbing. But he gets himself back on the road. The number 15 driver there quickly recovering from that. But this is where they're all pushing as Mundy decides to go straight on. Oh, what on earth has happened here? That's Nick Peterson and Gareth McAllister. They've had a big coming together, the pair of them. We've got Mundy taking his time there, making his way out of turn number 4. So there's been some difficulties for our drivers, no doubt about it. Some surprises to be certain and some big ones there this qualifying session. And definitely leaving everything up to question. But it does look as though McAllister and what was none other, excuse me, then Peterson having a bit of a coming together there. And, well, don't think we're able to get a replay of that, given that we're in qualifying, but definitely one of those moments, I think, where both drivers will be looking back at what they could have done. But across the timeline comes Jason Mayer. He moves up to 4th place on a 1 minute 12.359. Number 77 driver looking quicker now for MSR Purple. And it does look as though the team finally finding that time out there. And, well, the number 77 drivers had to spend a lot of time to get to that point. And one thing we should emphasise as well is all these lap times are subject to validation by iRacing after the qualifying session, in the fact that we essentially see the lap times that are set, but they don't take account for any invalidations via off tracks or breach of the track limits. So therefore, just keep in mind these standings are provisional, subject to when we go to the grid for the sprint race, which isn't too far away, and when we do, then we'll find out exactly where drivers are going to line up. But you can tell one thing right now, if anybody's got an invalid lap inside that top 10, even our pole sitter, well, that's going to be heartbreaking because that's going to push them down multiple places. Craig Brick, meanwhile, he comes through turn number... When he comes up through turn number 5 into 6, and as he exits the corner right now, he's looking relatively quick. It's 11th place at the moment for the 777 car. Does he see it as a good bit of luck there? We'll have to see. Either way, the INCA Salsa machine right now roaring its way over the crest. The speeds at which they go over that hill is absolutely incredible, but that's full confidence in the downforce. That's full abuse of the downforce there, and, well, you can't blame him for that. As Brick now makes his way further afield, all the way in towards what will be turn number 12 and another lap. And with it, we jump on board with him and take you around for a flying lap of the circuit from Craig Brick's perspective, ladies and gentlemen. He's making his way down towards turn number 1 here as he crosses that timeline. 182 miles an hour on entry, and now full commit as he turns into the corner there, maxing out 185, and then chucking his way into turn number 2. Lift off the throttle, add a little bit of brake, and drop a gear or two. And as he exits out, well, not as much confidence there to carry speed out of turn number 2. That's where he's losing the time. But heading towards turn number 3 now will be full commitment and bringing the car to the left-hand side. And then hard on the anchors he goes, about 100 metres of corner entry, and down to second gear. Riding the curb a little bit, pulls the car around, fights with oversteer, goes out wide, and the Brick is into the barrier, and that's going to be a quick tow to the pits there, and that's a rough lot there for Craig Brick, who was looking quick, but unfortunately pushed it a bit too hard coming out the hairpin, and in the end losing it. But meanwhile, Finley Fitzsimmons goes even faster, a 1 minute 11.741, and, well, as we briefly lose him and he rematerialises from the ether, he's going that quickly that the cameras and indeed the iRacing servers are struggling to keep up with him. The MSR Purple driver right now really putting down a statement, which is that he's not just here and to make sure he finishes second fiddle to anybody else. He is here to take a crown this season and indeed become what be a 3-time champion, moving himself to 3rd in the Drivers' Champion Hall of Fame in terms of ranking. But right now, keeping in mind we have got 9 rounds this season, this might be a circuit that favours him in terms of the style and nature of it. And then we've got a whole variety of circuits over the course of the season, and that's going to be on all of our drivers' minds, and the fact that where they may struggle at Phillip Island, they may do better at other circuits. We'll have to wait and see. As meanwhile, in the battle of the 2 Elliots, it is Elliot Court, currently your number 1. Well, he is in 5th place, just ahead of Rolls. The delta between the two of them is half a tenth. And Court right now for DDK Racing Team ahead of his teammate. But the fact they'll be lined up on the 3rd row of the grid if this continues isn't a bad thing, because if they can finish 5th and 6th, they'll be starting 1st and 2nd for the feature race, which gives them a good opportunity. Now, one other thing to keep in mind for this season, we have had a slight change to the point structure for what is the racing, also qualifying. Now, in the qualifying session in particular, it's no longer 2 bonus points for pole position, it's only 1. And in the feature race, what we've seen is that the positions for points being awarded have been slightly reduced. And how much they've been reduced, I hear you ask? Well, it's now only the top 12 finishing positions that are awarded points, not the top 15. So it means points are a little bit more precious, and, well, it definitely does mean that all of our drivers will need to be absolutely on their toes. You can't settle for 15th anymore, and Antonio Bianchi will know that most as the series organiser as he heads on around, as he slithers out of turn number 4 into 5 and 6, and right now that car just not looking happy. And well, they're all running the same setup, to be fair, ladies and gentlemen. There's very little they could tweak on these cars other than typically what is the ABS balance and with it the brake balance that goes with it. But other than that, in fact, I don't think they can even touch the ABS anymore. I think it is purely the brake balance, so whether you push it towards the front of the car or push it towards the rear, the more rearward you put your brake biases or brake balance, the idea is the rear brakes do a lot more of the work, but it also means when you come off the brakes on corner entry to hit the apex, the rear of the car will come round more quickly, whereas you were front biased, the opposite is true, whereby the front brakes do more work, but it means the car naturally wants to understeer more into the corner, and will be down to driver preference to set that up, whereas everything else they have to run with. But I can tell you one thing, Bianchi's car, it may not be the fastest out there, but it's definitely one of the shiniest as he decides to park up. And, well, with sub 1 minute left, all the drivers right now will need to complete the lap because they've only got 30 seconds left on the clock. Jace Mayer being one of them for MSR Purple. Can he get himself on the front row alongside his teammate, none other than Fitzsimmons? He crossed that line. He cannot. That will be it for him. Meanwhile, behind, Austin Thomas crossed the line. He stays in 10th place. We've also got coming on through very shortly none other than Sergi at Porog. As Porog makes his way around. In fact, he won't make it in time, and we have had Robert Noble's crossed that timeline for MSR Green. He stays 16th. Meanwhile, Shade Prophet has improved to 4th place. We haven't really talked about him, but I'm sure we'll talk more about him in the race now. But the clock is 3, 2, 1, and 0. And that is qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. And without further ado, we head to the grid for our first race of the season. So as they all make their way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the season opening race of the League Zero Formula Series Season 17 as presented by INCA Salsa. It is pole position for none other than what is Finley Fitzsimmons. A brilliant pole position at that, and the MSR Purple driver will be joined on the front row of the grid by Rodent Racing's Leo Del Mar, who in him was the best of the rest, 4.5 tenths behind. It's a 3rd place start for Fabian Sanchez for Squid Gang Racing, who looked good and indeed is looking to try and move the team forward this season. The American driver being joined on the 2nd row of the grid by Shade Prophet, who put together a brilliant lap for that 4th place in the 79. It's then going to be Jace Mayer for MSR Purple, who begins his story in 5th ahead at DDK Racing Team's Elliot Court. The defending champion could only manage 6th. Behind him will be his teammate of Elliot Rolls, the Scotsman, then being followed up by Jack Mundy, who starts 8th, and then Shahi Zahair from the Sri Lankan team of Arrive and Drive Racing ahead of none other than Austin Thomas. The MSR Green driver will then be followed up by the pairing on row number 11. In fact, row number 6, starting 11th, I should say. Let's get my numbers in the right order of Craig Brick for INCA Salsa Racing and INCA Chips' Gareth McAllister. And then on row number 7 behind him, it's Nick Peterson for Arrive and Drive Racing ahead of Renison Lowe, with the Canadian driver then having his fellow countryman there of INCA with 51C of Antonio Bianchi. And Robert Nobles begins today on the 8th row in 16th place. Behind the MSR Green driver, it will then be DeMonte Dotson, who looked quick at the start of qualifying, but the Formula American Racing driver gradually dropped down the ranks. He's got the company of James Turnbull, who starts 18th for RAC GP, and completing your top 20, it is going to be none other than Carlos Balinas and Arturo Mayorga. Behind the INCA Chips driver, we then do have starting 21st, it is going to be Sergei Porok, and from the privateer, it will then be Formula American Racing's Catherine Sweat, and starting last but not least in 23rd place, it's going to be Xavier Zainab for Rodent Racing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the grid is set, we're ready to go for the first time this season, the lights go on, the engines rise, and after 5 red lights, it's lights out and away we go for our season opener here at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. Round number 1 gets underway for season 17, and Finley Fitzsimmons immediately sprints into the lead ahead of Fabian Sanchez, but behind it's 3 wide there almost as Elliot Court's on the outside. A couple of drives taking that wide line to give themselves space in the inside for turn number 2. Court fighting with Rolls as Jack Mundy as well fighting hard by hard. It's 2 wide here, as meanwhile we've got Shea Buffett, we've got off the road. In fact, Buffett's gone very wide, we've lost him, and I think he's going to be rejoining shortly, but Buffett's had a nightmare start to this race. race, and want to see where he comes back into it later on. But meanwhile, into the first hairpin they come. Heavy brakes, cold tyres, and as they come through that corner, will anybody run wide? Yes, Elliot Rolls has run out very wide. He's come through the bottom of the camera. That's a surprise. And meanwhile, there's even more surprises in store here as Mundy fights his way back ahead of Mayer through turn 6. But heading up the hill, further back, Nick Peterson. He's still fighting with Gareth McAllister, albeit Peterson has finally cleared McAllister as they head up the hill now, and Monte Donson is now trying to get involved. In fact, McAllister did get back ahead of Peterson in that run, but it's Sergio Porok who's fighting with Dotson just behind him, and it's going to be Porok who's trying to get close. Oh, goodness me, was there contact there? It looked as though Porok had to take a very late dip to the inside to avoid potential contact there, but he did well to do so, otherwise it could have been pieces for the pair of them. I think they're Porok way to break later than Dotson, but Dotson then caught him by surprise. Renison low, meanwhile being passed around the outside by Arturo Mayorga, and Mayorga is absolutely flying as we come towards the end of lap number 1. And it's a scramble down the start finish straight here as we're going to see Balanas and Sweat both looking for opportunities, and the Team America racing drivers here all scrambling into turn number 1. And well, oh goodness me, that's the car of the road. That is Sweat going straight on into the gravel trap. Sweat's able to find the runoff road and will rejoin gradually. But after one lap, an excited opening lap here to kick off the season, it's Finley Fitzsimmons who leads ahead of Fabian Sanchez. Elliot Court, defending champion, moves into third, taking the place back from Leo Delmar, does he? Delmar does fall back in line in the end, coming out to 5 into 6. Then it's Jace Mayer in 5th place, with Jack Mundy, Austin Thomas, Antonio Bianchi, Shahi Zaher and Craig Brick who complete your top 10, and Robert Nobles is best of the rest in 11th place. But there's plenty of fighting going on, and Antonio Bianchi's had a brilliant start. 7 places gained. He's one of the biggest gainers. In fact, he is the biggest gainer since the very start, but right now he's got a lot more work to do as they all come down in towards the second hairpin once again. 2 laps as quick as that will be done, and then we'll be on to lap number 3, and before you know it, we'll be on to 4. But looking a bit further back, Shea Bruffett, who started all the way up in 4th place, Zainab goes deep and around there, falling off of the exit curve of the hairpin at turn number 10, gets himself turned around and doesn't bury it in the grass, thank goodness, and Zainab gets going once more. But Shea Bruffett right now on the attack, as meanwhile Gareth McAllister there found his way to the grass. I'm not sure if he was aided in that adventure, but either way, Bruffett right now expecting a recovery drive from him. He will be looking to pick his way past them as quickly as he can. Now, if you're wondering why you're seeing a flashing green light on top of the cars, particularly on what is the headrest behind the driver, that's to indicate they are using the overtake button. We can't tell you how much they've got left, but they do have an allotment, which in the sprint race will normally last most of the sprint race, but in the feature, that's where it becomes much more tactical. If it's flashing, it's being deployed. If it's solid green, it means it's not being deployed, but it's available. If it goes red, they're out of it. They can't use it anymore. And Shahi Zaher right now being very tactical of where he uses it and where he does not, because the thing is, all it does is it increases the engine output. It doesn't increase the top speed of the car. It just helps them get to their maximum speed of 189 miles an hour sooner rather than later. So therefore, you need to use it at the right place, and typically it's the acceleration zones onto a long straight. However, everybody knows about it, and given the fact we've only got one long straight here at Phillip Island, drivers are going to get a bit more tactical about where exactly they use it. But we'll see what's going to happen here, as meanwhile Burke right behind as we ride on board, looking down over the cockpit of the INCA Salsa racing driver, fighting for 8th place at the moment as they power their way along in the draft here. A big overspeed overtakes on as well. You can see that on the steering wheel. He's going to look around the outsides ahead, defensive, so his own overtake button. Bianchi forces them to fight each other. 2 while they enter into turn 1, and immediately Brick just simply parks up the car and says, "No, I don't," and backs off. He's got Robert Nobles watching from behind as well, so this is going to become a very big fight between all 4 of these drivers. Albeit Nobles right now in a triple draft there. I can imagine the front end of his car for MSR Green is going to feel a little bit slippery. But meanwhile, your leaders, they're getting closer and closer together. And well, I can tell you one thing right now, Finley Fitzsimmons is not breaking away with this, but Fabian Sanchez is keeping him honest. Alternatively, is Fitzsimmons just simply nursing the distance and protecting his tyres a little bit, knowing he's got the pace, but he doesn't need to show it off in this race. We'll have to see as we take a look back at some of the moments from the very start of the race, ladies and gentlemen, because there's definitely been some big moments. And here we go for our first replays of the season. So we begin then with what happened to Shade Prophet as he made his way into turn number 2. He was 4th, went into the open sweep and left-hander, went deep, went very deep, and went even deeper, and in the end, ended up in the gravel, and that's why we lost him, and it took him a very long time to rejoin, but he eventually did rejoin, but not without falling all the way down the order. We then had this for Elliot Rolls in the opening lap as well. This with the DDK Racing Team driver, the number 2 driver, all the way back behind his teammate, went into the braking zone for the hairpin, and by looks things missed his braking zone, and in the end had to chuck the car to the outside to avoid making contact. Great awareness there from Rolls, otherwise it would have been a word in the pit lane for the DDK Racing Team driver, and it wouldn't have been a happy one at that. We then had this for Catherine Sweat on lap number 2. and Sweat making their way in towards turn number 1 here. Had a huge draft into the corner, and it was getting very crowded. Went on into the right-hander, and the car just went straight on there. I wonder whether that was a steering wheel failure. In fact, it looks like the car went to turn in, but unfortunately, well, driver went to turn in. Car said no, and Sweat in the end had to take a time coming back on. We had this was Xavier Zainav towards the end of lap number 2. This was heading in towards turn number 10. What exactly went wrong for Zainav? Oh, under braking there. The car came a little bit loose, and in the end went too deep, and that's what sent him around. The rear right tyre going to the grass, and then we had this only moments to go on lap number 4 for Elliot Rolls. A big off-track here. This was coming out to 1 into 2. What exactly went wrong for him, I hear you ask? And the answer is, took a little bit of turf there as he made his way into turn 2, and that caused him to go deep, and after that the gravel trap found him and caught him. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we head back to your live racing. As we do, still more laps to come and plenty more to get excited about. No doubt about it, so drivers make the way deeper and deeper into the distance. Now onto lap number 6. We're halfway into this race come the end of this lap. And right now, Finley Fitzsimmons holds on against Fabian Sanchez. But Sanchez, to his credit, he started third. He looked a bit off the pace in qualifying compared to Fitzsimmons. But I wonder whether he's one of those drivers who likes to essentially have somebody to chase. Perhaps he just struggles when he's got nobody to chase in qualifying. But in the race, you put him in the dirty of another car. You give him something, essentially a carrot to go after. It's the saying, carrot or stick. Some drivers prefer the stick, which might be Fitzsimmons, where the pressure is behind them. Meanwhile, for Sanchez, the carrot in front is trying to take the win, and he's hunting that down very eagerly. He's hungry for that victory, no doubt about it. It's impressive from him. Also impressive is a bit further back, DeMonte Dotson, who right now finds himself between Nobles and Paroc. And coming over the request and down here, well, ooh, that was a bit close there for Nobles. You could see the car snaking under braking. Robert Nobles is feeling some pressure here as we look back to the rear of the car. In fact, we don't quite at the moment. Bit of a glitch on our camera there. We do apologise for that. And in fact, we have been able to find that rear look. There it is. And the MSR green driver making his way onwards. We have had a change of leader, we should point out. We will come to that shortly, but here comes a change of position as Nobles is going to be swarmed here by Dotson on the outside. And also, that's going to be Paroc trying to go around the outside, but Sergei Paroc is not able to do so. And then Nobles says to him, only one at a time, please, sir. And as they come through too, well, right now, Paroc backs off then. You could see the speed he carried. That caught him by surprise a little bit, and he had to very quickly lift out of it. Otherwise, he would have been taking a trip to the grass to turn 2. A bit further up the road, we've got even more fighting here, as this is Austin Thomas fighting with Shahi Zaher. Zaher trying to go around the outside, using the downforce to his advantage, but it's not going to work there as Thomas continues to make himself as wide as humanly possible. He parks the proverbial bars, and Jack Mundy, who was in this battle for 5th through to 9th place, now is able to escape a little bit, and it becomes a battle for 6th through to 9th. Shahi Zaher having Craig Brick right behind him, and then Antonio Bianchi just watching on from the rear. But onwards they come, and as they do, well, we've had a bit of a change. In fact, Fabian Sanchez has dropped all the way down the order. He's all the way down in 11th place now. I don't know how he's managed to get there as he fights his way on past 2 drivers, and that was both Robert Nobles and Paroc. He just found his way past, but Sanchez is back on the charge. But we need a replay to explain what exactly happened, because he took the lead for a brief moment, and then suddenly he's lost it, and he's lost a lot more places. And, well, Phillip Island giveth, Phillip Island taketh, no doubt about it. But exactly what has happened, well, here comes a replay to explain, ladies and gentlemen. So this was Sanchez heading down the start-finish straight versus Fitzsimmons into turn 1, using the overtake and the draft there. Fitzsimmons in the end looked to defend it at the last possible moment, didn't quite work out. So that's how he got ahead initially. Now into turn 2. Ooh, that explains it. Sanchez just went all the way out to the outside, and that right tyre just touched a slight micrometer of grass there, and that's what sent him to the gravel trap. And Sanchez went around and started losing places. My good lord, that recovery there. If he was any later than that, that would have been multiple cars coming together there. I get the feeling that Sanchez might have a word in his ear after the race from the stewards to say, just be careful your rejoins. That was scary. I kid you not, ladies and gentlemen. And I can imagine for all the drivers out there, they would have been scared of that as well. But with that, we now come back to your live racing. So going back to what's left of this race, we've still got a bit of time left with 8 laps soon giving way to 9. And here is lap number 9 as we see Fitzsimmons leading now with Elliot Court up into 2nd, and he'll be very happy to be there. Further back, however, Austin Thomas still fighting with Shahi Zaher, and Zaher right now looking on the inside here, both using the overtake, albeit the inside here's ahead defending now, but you can see Austin Thomas still making sure to stay right there with it all the way and around. Thomas having to use that overtake unconventionally there through turns 1 and 2. Normally use it on the straights, you don't use it mid-quarter, but Thomas there decided to do his best to do so. And now through turn number 3, they come into the braking zone, and Austin Thomas here defending hard ahead, trying to go around the outside. He loves that outside line at this hairpin. He's just got so much more confidence than the other drivers out there when it comes to turn number 4. And well, Zaher makes it work. A lovely move there. And if we're looking for candidates for overtake of the season, or what's the textbook overtake, that's one from Zaher, no doubt about it, as he now gets ready to make his way out the hill. Thomas is still with him, however, as we ride on board. The number 35 driver looking for a counter-attack. But as we ride all the way over the crest and down, well, right now for Austin Thomas, if he can't make this move happen soon, Antonio Bianchi and Craig Brick will both be with him there, looking for an opportunity to also find a way in. So right now it's got to be offensive defence here for Thomas, as we've only got 2 more laps to go, coming on to the next one. And the MSR green driver here, well, he knows how to counter-attack. He picks up the speed here, and we can see what is our driver in front of Zuhair going defensive. But Thomas, in the end, well, he's going to look all the way around the outside. Will he make it work? Zaher demonstrates now that he can defend to the inside. Can he go to the outside of 2? No. So Thomas will take the place back, but this could be temporary. It might be give and take, a bit of a seesaw between these two, and what a battle it is. And keep in mind, of course, the importance of this 6th place. It is where the grid gets reversed from for the purposes of the grid for the feature race. So whoever takes 6th is your pole sitter for what will be the feature, and that is why Austin Thomas, Zaher, Bianchi and Brick are all fighting this so hard, and it's building a long queue of cars. And further back in the fight for 12, we have James Turnbull and Sergei Porok. They're still fighting each other, but look at this from Shade Buffett having to recover ever still. Goes around the outside there of Arturo Mayorga in towards turn number 6. So a smooth move there from Buffett, but I think Mayorga not fight it too hard, respecting the fact there'll be little value in fight it at this point. As unfortunately, off camera, we can confirm we have had retirements of both what is Nick Peterson and Catherine Sweat, but I'm sure we'll see them back on the grid for what will be our feature race later today. Still more to come as our leader has gone to the final lap. 1 minute 12.031 for Finley Fitzsimmons, the fastest lap of the race by a gargantuan margin of the best part of 2.5 tenths. That doesn't sound like much, but at these speeds and what they're doing with the tow as well for many a driver, that's huge. But meanwhile, look at this. This is a huge battle as well, as the fight for 6th now goes another round, as it's going to be side by side. They're always touching wheels between Thomas and Zaher. Zaher backs off on the outside there, but Thomas goes a bit too deep. He goes to the white line. He just about keeps it on the road. My good Lord, Austin Thomas, take a bow when you get out the car. That was drifting sideways there in a Super Formula car. I've never seen that before. And meanwhile, Shahid Zaher now to defend as Antonio Bianchi has said, right, they're all fighting again. Now's my turn to attack. But as Bianchi left it a little bit too late, as Zaher now tries to staple himself to that 6th place. And with Jack Mundy 1 second up the road, he'll get a distant tow as well. Well, it's all going to be the big scramble as Austin Thomas still under pressure here from what is Craig Brick. Brick getting ahead of him there as they head up the hill. So Brick making a good move, and Thomas trying to get back at him. He's going to look up the inside with a sweep and left-hander at turn number 9. He may just about get it, and as he does, well, into that hairpin they come. They stop their battle, and we have to leave him behind because of Finley Fitzsimmons. It's been a dominant race after qualifying, and he is your winner in race number 1 of the day by 4 seconds over Elliott Court, who finishes runner-up ahead of Leo Del Mar, and then it will be Jace Mayer who comes across the line in 4th place in the end. Well, a solid drive there, 1st and 4th for MSR Purple. Great result. Then we have Jack Mundy cross line in 5th ahead of Shahid Zaher. I think just beaten Antonio Bianchi to the line. And then it will be Austin Thomas in 8th place ahead of Craig Brick, with Fabian Sanchez rounded off your top 10. And Devontae Dotson is best to the rest in 11th place. We've still got a couple more drivers to finish their races, including Carlos Balinas. The Mexican driver had a bit of frustrating first race of the season, but still, that's why there's 2 today for the RAC GP driver. And we also do have Xavier Zainav, who comes across the line in 21st, and they will be all your finishers in this one. Goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. So the great thing is we've got an even longer race to come yet on today's programme, so therefore don't think it's all over yet. Speaking of which, well, we do have a warm-up period here, and I do believe we have got a couple of minutes, so we are going to quickly take you through those results subject to any stewards' inquiries, and here they are. And as we can see, for our season opening 11-lap sprint in round number 1 of season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series, presented by INCA Salsa here at Paul Walsh Productions, Finley Fitzsimmons, your winner for MSR Purple by 4.2 seconds over Elliott Court. Court in the end made his way to 2nd after the difficulties for Fabian Sanchez, but the DDK Racing driver will be happy with the points either way. Leo Del Mar was 3rd for Rodent Racing ahead of MSR Purple's Jace Mayer, with Jack Mundy finishing 5th there, the privateer, and Shahid Zaher taking the first top 6 reverse grid podium of the season in the series history with that brilliant counter-attack right at the end to finish ahead of Antonio Bianchi. The Sri Lankan driver then followed up by the INCA 51C Bianchi, with Austin Thomas in 8th place there for MSR Green, feeling robbed of positions right at the end of that one. He was ahead of Craig Brick and Fabian Sanchez. Sanchez will be the one to watch in race number 2, no doubt about it, given the fact that he's definitely got race-winning pace, but the grass found him in race number 1, but hopefully he finds the tarmac in race 2. DeMonte Dotson was best the rest in the length ahead of Sergei Porok, and then it was James Turnbull, Robert Nobles and Shade Bruffett completing your top 15. And keep your eyes out for Bruffett as well, because the privateer, he fell all the way down to the back of the field after a mistake at turn 2 on the opening lap. But will he make the same mistake twice, or will he move forward rapidly? We will see. The Inca Chips driver of Arturo Mayorga was 16th ahead of Renison Lowe, with DDK Racing's Elliot Rolls ahead of Gareth McAllister, and Carlos Belenos round off your top 20. Outside the top 20, it was a 21st place finish for Xavier Zainav, and the Rodent Racing drivers then followed up by the retirees of Nick Peterson and Catherine Sweat. So 23 starters, 21 finishers, ladies and gentlemen, all on the lead lap, and well, the good news is we're about to do it all over again, but this time for what will be just over 3 times the race distance, because we've got a 34-lap thriller coming up here at what is the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit. And if you haven't had the chance to quickly go to the bathroom and get yourself a drink to get refreshed, do so now, because we're heading to the grid very soon. And as we take our own advice there and take a quick sip of water, because I get the feeling I'm not going to be able to when we do go racing. Well, right now, as everyone's parked up and itching to go, well, we count down the clock. It's a 5-minute break here. And what are we going through on the minds of our drivers right now? Well, firstly, as they all sit in the pit lane quite patiently, many of them will simply be out of the car at the moment. They'll be going to tend to something else. They may get themselves a liquid refreshment. They may go to the bathroom. On top of that as well, they'll be thinking, okay, what worked, what didn't work in the race? And well, if you sit inside what is the cockpit, for example, of Leo Del Mar's car, albeit it does seem to be a little bit of a tricky one there, as our camera doesn't quite want to work at the moment, although we may be able to get it back a little bit later. But what they'll be thinking about, and Del Mar in particular, they'll be thinking about one thing and one thing only, which is how can we improve after what has been the challenge of race number 1? Well, for Del Mar, he finished quite happily, he finished quite handsomely in this one, so I think in his mind, it's going to be now about just simply trying to move forward a little bit further, and particularly with that top 6 reverse grid start, he'll be thinking about who he's going to be able to make places on as he goes racing. Meanwhile, when you look a little bit further back to the likes of Shade Prophet, for example, well, he knows it's a long task that awaits him up ahead on the road, and therefore it's not going to be easy by any means, and he's going to be able to think about what can he do to be able to get forward and how quickly he can make up those places as well. And I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be thinking to himself, you know what, I might just be able to make up 1 or 2 places right at the start of the race, and then after that I've just got to carve my way past them one by one. We'll see what he could do. We'll see what they could all do, ladies and gentlemen, as we are only a minute away. And it does seem as though, well, in all the excitement, one of our cockpit cameras on board all the cars has decided that it's not available anymore, so we won't quite be able to bring you that camera we brought to you with qualifying, but we'll get that fixed for the next broadcast, don't you worry about that. But we've still got all of our other camera angles available there. That's why we've been seeing that glitch every so often. It does happen every so often, but I'm sure you'll forgive us, as it's been a very exciting season opener thus far. Vinny Fitzsimmons, meanwhile, the MSR purple driver, well, he makes his way on around here and in towards his turn number 2. He decides there's a bit too silent out on the circuit, so he's going to produce some noise, albeit he hasn't got very long. And I think that was just a test run out the pits. I think that was the equivalent of a practice start for him, as he'll turn back. Shea Prophet does the same here. I think just getting a feel of what it's like on cold tyres into turns 1 and 2, because it is a similar run from the pit lane exit line as it is from the start-finish line to make your way in towards the opening corner. So both drivers there taking a last chance saloon at a bit of practice. And then after that, as Fitzsimmons has just done a practice start as well on the exit of turn number 2. Well, he's got Prophet coming around here. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to head to the grid for our second and final race of our season opener. So as all of our drivers make the way onto the grid for the second and final time here today, this is how they'll line up. A top 6 reverse grid. That means that Shahi Zahair takes pole position for Arrive and Drive Racing. He'll be absolutely pleased as punch for that. Then it'll be Jack Mundy who joins him on the front row of the grid with Jace Mayer in third. The MSR Purple driver will have the company of Leo Del Mar. They'll go fighting once again with the Rodent Racing driver also cognizant of the fact that it'll have Elliot Court hot at his heels for DDK Racing starting in 5th. In 6th, it's going to be Finley Fitzsimmons for MSR Purple, your winner of race number 1. Can he make it back-to-back wins today and set down a major marker in the championship? We will see. If not, Antonio Bianchi might have an opportunity to squeeze ahead because he was the greatest gainer on the opening lap. The INCA X51C driver starts in 7th ahead of Austin Thomas, with Thomas there in 8th for MSR Green, looking to move a little bit further forward and represent the team proudly. Then it'll be Craig Brick who starts in 9th place for INCA Salsa, racing ahead of Fabian Sanchez, the one to watch out for because the second fastest driver over the course of qualifying in race number 1, where he starts all the way back in 10th. In 11th, it's going to be Devontae Dotson, best of the rest for Formula American Racing, as he continues his battle with Sergei Porok. And then we do have Rack GP's James Turnbull ahead of none other than Robert Nobles. The MSL Green driver then give away to Shea Prophet, another driver who we can expect to come through the field quite quickly, where Tara Mioga started in 16th place for Inca Chips. I should say. And then we do have none other than what is Renison Lowe starting 17th, the privateer ahead of DDK Racing Teams, Elliot Rolls. And then on what is the final row to complete the top 20, it will be Gareth McAllister for Inca Chips and Carlos Balanas. Then it will be in 21st place, Xavier Zainab for Rodent Racing, alongside him Nick Peterson after the difficulties of race 1. And the Arrive and Drive Racing drive will be followed up 23rd on the grid, last but not least, by Formula American Racing's Catherine Sweat. So that's how the grid lines up, ladies and gentlemen. They're ready to go for a second time. The lights are going on. The revs rise again here at Phillip Island. It's 34 laps. It's a longer race. And without further ado, it's lights out, away we go. As Shahi says, stumbles off the line. And as he does so, look at that for Jace Mayer. Past the seas. Meanwhile, Leo Del Mar. So oh my good lord, there's a huge, huge incident in the rear of the picture. That is Elliot Rolls and I believe Robert Noble's coming together. But as they make their way towards turn number 2, 3 wide they came into the corner, 2 wide their exit. Jace Mayer does squeeze ahead of Leo Del Mar, and Del Mar in the end is still there fighting with him. They are absolutely going at this right now, and well, Mayer's going to try and hold that inside line as best he can as they come down towards turn number 4. Hold on the brakes, they go. Meanwhile, Antonio Bianchi on the inside there, a bit of a lock-up for him, but he just manages to squeeze ahead of Fabian Sanchez. It's absolutely terrific here at the start of the race, and we'll get a replay of what exactly happened further back shortly, because that was a nasty shunt there, not something we want to see, but all the drivers heading up the hill right now, and Arturo Mayorga here, he's quite quick as well, battling with Redison Lowe. Lowe's been one of the bigger gainers further down the order, up to 14th place already, so he'll be happy with that. And in fact, one driver caught up in that big incident as well. It's Finley Fitzsimmons of some description. Fitzsimmons has been caught up in it, and his race has gone from good to bad to worse, so we will not be seeing him surely make it back-to-back wins here today, and suddenly this opens up this race massively. Speaking of which, Jace Mayer goes very deep there at turn number 10. As he comes from 11 into 12, Leo Del Mar takes the lead off him, and Jack Mundy gets ahead as well. So after an absolutely exciting opening lap, it's Leo Del Mar who leads ahead of Mundy, followed by Mayer. That's your top 3. Then Elliot Court sits in 4th ahead of Shahi Zahair, followed by Antonio Bianchi. Then it's Fabian Sanchez ahead of Sergei Porok, followed by Austin Thomas and Shade Prophet. Prophet's already up to 10th place. He is making quick progress as Devontae Dotson. Meanwhile, fighting hard with Craig Brick. Brick on the inside there versus what is Turnbull. And as they come through, turn number 2 in towards 3. James Turnbull right now fighting back here as they come into the next braking zone, but Turnbull is looking to be very fierce right now. He wants that place, but the 777 is not giving in, and well, 2 wide they're going to come into the hairpin. How will they exit it? The answer is not quite 2 wide, as Brick does get ahead at the end and moves back into 12th place. Shahi's ahead, meanwhile fighting here with Antonio Bianchi. Oh, there's a car into the gravel. That's Austin Thomas who gets escorted out wide. I think that he might have just made his own way out there. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but that's a shock, that's a surprise, and right now MSR are not having a happy day at the office whatsoever. Their green driver's gone around, and indeed they've already lost one of their purple drivers in this race. So therefore, as we do come back inside the top 10 for a brief moment, Devontae Dotson picks up the place that's been left behind there by stricken MSR green machine, and Dotson right now fancies his chances versus Buffett surely, as Shea Prophet continues to just build up the pace. And in the shadow of the sun right now, all these drivers are really impressive here as they go to lap number 3, and well, Leo Dubbo is setting the pace at the very front of the field, but I think everyone's still to extend their legs properly, and now we're starting to get into the thick of the fighting. Jack Mundy here, meanwhile, he's got pressure of Elliot Cord, as caught once again on the back of him here. But you'll notice now that our drivers won't be as liberal with the use of the push-to-pass button or the overtake button. And the reason for that is with 3 times the length of the race, with an extra lap thrown in for good measure as well, what it does mean is that our drivers now need to think about when they use that push-to-pass versus when they don't. They get 100, I believe it's 200 seconds as an allotment. It may be less than that, in fact. I'm sure somebody will correct me if I've got it wrong. But they get a finite amount of time. And when you think, even if it is 200 seconds, that is not very long when a single lap around here amounts to the best part. If you do the quick mental mathematics, or 1 minute 12 lap, that is 72 seconds. You do the maths, that is not even 3 full laps around this circuit. Well, they've got it available to them, and if they are using it for multiple sections a lap, they'll quickly expend it. So do you use it early? Do you use it later on in the race when you expect others to have dried out of it? That is what our drivers need to think about here. It's a very tactical game on top of everything else they have to manage at the best part of an average lap speed of 130 miles an hour. And well, that's why these are some of the very best Super Formula drives that you will see in the North American continent, if not around the globe, as they race in this Premier Series. A little bit further back, Austin Thomas at the inside there, Xavier Zainab. Zainab doesn't make it too difficult there for Thomas, but to be fair, I think both of them focusing on different races, and also Zainab respecting the fact that Thomas is a top 10 contender, whereas Zainab's pace will put him just outside the top 10 if he's able to get back into the clutches of it. But he's looking up the inside there to turn 1. That's more to bleed the overspeed and give himself sighting for the corner rather than to try and make a move. But it's also a polite way of saying to Austin Thomas, yes, I'll let you go. Now can you get a move on, please? But meanwhile, back to Jack Mundy and the leaders, as Leo Delmar is currently the lead car in this pack, 1.2 seconds ahead now, breaking away from Jace Mayer, and it is Mayer who really leads the rest of the field through. Mundy, Court, Zahair, Bianchi are the queue that follow him. But behind, we do have what is even more excitement here, as this is Shea Bruffett battling with Sergei Perok and Craig Brick. Perok is ahead right now, giving the toe to both Brick and Bruffett in equal measure, and well, up the hill they come. Bruffett's on the outside now into turn number 9. On the inside comes James Turnbull. He decides, right, doors wide open, and when you're that deep on the outside line, you're never going to carry the speed forward. Up the inside goes the Turby. Oh, that's brave. That's bold under braking. There's contact, and Bruffett is turned, and it leads to a domino effect here, and I believe Bruffett's car has picked up a big knock. Meanwhile, Renison Lowe has also been caught up in that as he tried to take evasive action on the inside of turn number 10, and Lowe's race goes from good to bad to disaster, and Shea Bruffett the same. Bruffett has to toe to the pit, and meanwhile Renison Lowe comes into the pit lane already, and well, understandably I think both drivers will be very frustrated with that one, and well, they will both be looking at this man, Terry Mayorga, after the race and trying to find him in the garages. Well, I think Mayorga would say that he went for it, and well, they'll talk about it with the stewards after the race. And that's not to say that it is Mayorga's fault, to be fair. We only have one camera angle available to suggest one's thing, but the stewards have all the different camera angles, and also our drivers have to submit their reports and make sure they submit them factually. But meanwhile, we come back to Sergei Perok versus Craig Brick as he fights on the inside there. My good lord, that was a lunge and a half, and Brick saw it coming and left the door wide open in return. Respectful racing between these two. Oh, good lord, and that's Mayorga. Is that his teammate? I think it is. Gareth McAllister and Mayorga have come to blows, and well, the INCA Salsa team right now, it's gone from good to bad to worse, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's going to be a toe to the bits of both of them at this rate, as McAllister tries to get the car around, but that's going to take some time, and you can see how it's dropped on the rear right-hand side of the car, and I think right now for McAllister, this is a race that is going to be as good as done and dusted. But as we finally do get a bit of a breather in all the madness that's unfolding, we have an opportunity to take a look back at some of the big moments of the opening 6 laps of the race, starting with what happened right at the start. So this was the race start for Elliot Rolls and Robert Nobles. Rolls got away, and as he did close to the wall, oh, there was contact between himself and Robert Nobles. They came together, they got caught up, and the car just went spinning over the top. From Robert Nobles' perspective, I can imagine that would not be good for somebody of a nervous disposition, so we warn you in advance, ladies and gentlemen, hold on to your hat, because this was his on board. What he did in the end could see what was Rolls come across from the outside, and for Robert Nobles, the end car just went up, round and down, and in the end did land back on solid ground, but what a nightmare start for him. We had this for Finley Fitzsimmons. Meanwhile, this was the start for the 6th place driver, your winner for race number 1. So what happened in the background? What happened to Fitzsimmons meanwhile? Oh, the tiniest of taps there, but as those speeds, that's not a tiny tap into turn 1, and that was contact there, I believe, between Fitzsimmons and what was the car, unless I'm very much mistaken. I believe that might have been Jack Mundy's car in the end, and that's damaged Fitzsimmons' suspension, and well, 3 wide into turn number 1. Always somebody's going to get tapped, but unfortunately for Fitzsimmons, that was the end of his story. We had this meanwhile for Catherine Sweat as well in the opening lap, and Sweat heading up the hill for Formula American Racing Team, and Sweat did so at this point onto the brakes. Well, just went a little bit too heavy, and the car completely cut loose. We also had this for Austin Thomas on lap number 2. And this was Thomas making his way on around. And as he did so, the MSR Green Drive found himself right at the thick of the fight in. And this is where he got escorted out wide. But he did so of his own volition there and had to bring himself back onto the road. A small mistake, but with a big price to pay. We had this further in at Rendition low. This was the Canadian driver coming down the hill in towards the hairpin. That was Arturo Mayorga making the move. And we did see what happened there. And Low in the end tried to take evasive action. But Shea Prophet had already pulled to that outside line for 11. And Low in the end just found himself going the right way at the wrong time, and it all went very wrong. And then we just had this for Arturo Mayorga and Gareth McAllister on lap number 5. This was Mayorga going deep, went to come back on, car went round, and unfortunately Gareth McAllister was the one who found him. So not quite coming together that we perhaps thought, but definitely a bit of a nightmare moment. This was the onboard from McAllister's perspective, and as he went into the braking zone here, he's going to see his teammate out wide and think, okay, I'll just stay tight. Not so unfortunately, Mayorga went spinning across the road, and the INCA Chips teammates in the end taking each other out of the race, sadly, as we head back to your live racing pictures. So back we come, and we're on board here with Leo Del Mar for a brief moment before we look to the exterior view. He is right now trying to romp away to the win in this race. The gap right now as they head on to lap number 8 being 3.1 seconds, but where all the intrigue is the fight for second place with Jack Mundy and Elliot Court not letting each other go whatsoever as we get closer and closer toward the end of the first third. And then we have this long line of cars here where it's no longer a line, it's more of a 2x2 formation as Fabian Sanchez picks his way past Zuhair, and Antonio Bianchi says, mind if I do so as well? I don't think Zuhair's got a response to that other than he has to let it go, but the hill they both go now. Long line once again, and well, we have had quite a rate of attrition in this race. We have lost what has been Robert Nobles, Finley Fitzsimmons, Elliot Rolls, also Renison Lowe, Arturo Mayorga, Shea Prophet and Gareth McAllister. And you do the quick maths, so that's 7 of our 23 starters down. We've now got 16 still remaining in this race, but whilst we may lack the quantity at this point, we've still got plenty of quality out there on circuit. I'm sure you agree, ladies and gentlemen. And Elliot Court and Jack Mundy continue to swap the places back, as at long last Court does end up in second place going on to next lap. Meanwhile, Fabian Sanchez takes a look. Oh my lord, that was Jack Mundy diving to the inside. Oh, goodness me. That was a very late call to inside for Mundy. Used the overtake button there to give himself the last ditch bit of speed into the opening corner. And Court had to take evasive action right at the end. Both drivers right now are really pushing each other to the limit. And well, coming up towards turn number 4 here. Well, as long as they keep it this close, we love it. But keep it clean, gents, I ask you, as they come through the right-hander at turn number 4. And Fabian Sanchez now looks up the inside. There's a big bit of power oversteer there for Mundy. That's not going to help him keep the car calm. And now we look back from the rear of your second place runner. Look at the queue he's built up behind him. This battle is absolutely fierce. It's ferocious, and that's what League Zero is all about as they head up the hill. These Formula machines right now absolutely being driven to the limit by our drivers, and all the practice is paying off over Christmas. I can assure you of that. They've only had a month's break between season 16 and season 17. But in that break, well, if they've had too much turkey and tinsel, they're not showing it whatsoever. But coming on the round right now, down for returns 11 and 12, and Mundy does get the better run out there, understandably. Low-speed traction zone with dirty air as well. You are going to have the wheels spin up aggressively, and the front end of the car is going to lift in that dirty air. But Mundy right now trying to break the toe, but here comes Sanchez using the overspeed from the toe, plus the overtake button. Looking to the inside here, Sanchez wants to clear this group. Antonio Bianchi looks to get involved as well, but he's not going to be able to get quite close enough as Bianchi as he just waits. Meanwhile, Sanchez and Mundy fight side by side, going through turn number 2, roaring their way around the corner, and right now it's close. It's very, very close between them. Sanchez still has to clear Mundy. He's not quite done it yet as they come in towards turn number 4, getting ready to go on the brakes. What can Jack Mundy do at this point? Can he go around the outside? He's going to try to. He's going to try and use the line that's proved so valuable for Zuhair, and in the end he's run slightly out of road there. Sanchez gets the move done. I think Mundy won't be too pleased about that, and Antonio Bianchi just queues up watching right now the popcorn seat view, and we'll come in onwards towards the hill. Further back, Shahi Zuhair is getting closer and closer to the back of Elliot Court here, and I think he'd be hoping that Elliot could just get a bit of a move on, so that way they can bring themselves right into that group in front. Or is it perhaps a little bit more wiser to stay further back here, just because given how close they are? Big lock up there, and that is going to be Antonio Bianchi going straight on at turn number 10, and in the end he does stop it from going to the barrier, but as he recovers he gives up a place to also Jace Mayer, so Mayer now gets back involved in this as well. So Mayer, who fell out of the running order, now comes back into the fight. And the fight for second through to 7th is now only growing, and I'm sure it's going to add even more actors to it at this rate, because Craig Brick is getting onto the back of it, and so is James Turnbull, only 2 seconds behind, and it's a further 2 seconds to Dotson. So there's still more opportunities here as looking back to Peterson. He's looking for the move there versus Dotson, but he's way too far back in turn 1 to do it, but that's trying to get into the driver in front's head to say, look at me, don't look at your corner entry, but Dotson doesn't even notice it. He just keeps the lines absolutely smooth. But back to the fight for second place. It's Sanchez versus Mundi, part 2 here on lap number 11, and well, right now, if this was the sprint race, it'd be the final lap. We still got another, what is a grand total of 23 laps to go here. And right now, if these drivers keep at it for another 23 laps, what does that say about their stamina? It says they've got it in spades, as Mundi has managed to get back ahead of Sanchez coming out to turns 4, 5 and 6, but Sanchez right now is not giving up whatsoever. This is absolutely incredible racing between the pair. I think Sanchez at this point might now be starting to think to himself, you know what, I've still got a long way to go. This is not a sprint race. I kind of need to manage the car a little bit more, particularly the tyres. Looking back to Antonio Bianchi, well, after making so much progress, I think he'll be grateful for the fact that trip to the grass was not too much of a loss. As well, Jace Mayer's got to grass with his tyres. That is a running wide, I believe, at turn number 11 on entry. We didn't quite see what happened, but we've seen the aftermath. And unfortunately now, for Jace Mayer, he's going to fall backwards. Bianchi gets back ahead, but Mayer says, no, you don't. And Bianchi says, yes, I do. Meanwhile, Jack Mundi and Fabian Sanchez are having another tussle here through turns 1 and 2. Mundi defending hard this time, and Sanchez looking one way, then the other. As we look back from the rear of the second place machine, coming into the braking zone here for turn number 4. And well, Fabian Sanchez, what can he do differently this time as he goes around the outside? The answer is he can stay there, and Mundi says to him, well, I'll go a little bit deep with you then, shall I? So in the end, Sanchez isn't able to find a way through. These two right now are getting very precociously close as we look to the nose camera here for Squid Gang Race's number 8 driver. And well, as they head up the hill, Mundi briefly disappears, then rematerialises from the ether. I can tell you one thing, ladies and gents, but it is absolutely manic between these drivers, and if we were to have any of them retire due to a technical issue, the equivalent of an engine blub in real life racing, that would be heartbreaking right now. We do not want that, and that's why it's made me skip my heartbeat a little bit when I've seen the car disappear and reappear. But as they come through turn 11 into 12, big power oversteer moment there for Jack Mundi. He is really pushing on. He wants to break away from Sanchez, because if he doesn't get that gap up to about 8 tenths onto this start finish straight, that gap comes crashing down here, and Sanchez closing and closing and closing even more as he looks to the inside of turn 1. Does he go for it? Yes, he does. It's going to be a fight for the full time round here. They keep going. Are they going to go the whole 9 rounds, as they say? We'll have to see as they roar their way through turn number 2. Sanchez still on the outside. He just runs out of traction there on the exit of turn number 2, and Mundi's able to get back ahead further back. Well, we do see Court and Zahir now starting to close up. And Elliot Court in particular at this point, well, he's been playing his time. He's been playing it very well, but I could understand if the number 1 driver now is looking at this and thinking, you know what, it is time to start getting involved just that little bit more, because he started to give himself some clear air from Zuhair and Bianchi, and with Jace Mayer and Craig Brick now starting to fight each other further back, this is the opportunity for the defending champion to really start to move forward. The only thing is, if he does pass them, he's got a 7-second gap then to try and close down to Leo Del Mar, who right now is just walking away with the lead of this race because of how the fighting's going on for second. It's really become the centre and what is the centre stage priority of all the battling that's going on. But that's sometimes how the races go here, in the fact that with so much fighting going on for a position further down, it's just bottling everybody up. Now Elliot Court is carrying on. Fabian Sanchez is into the pit lane, and as he makes his way on down pit road, this is a tactical decision. He's decided enough's enough. I can't afford to just keep battling with Mundi whilst it's entertaining, and we absolutely love it here, and I'm sure you guys and girls do at home as well, ladies and gentlemen. The problem is it is costing him race time. He needs to clear his rival via an alternative means. So he's decided to get serviced in the pit lane, and Sanchez has just made his way to his box. I look out my commentary booth window, so therefore the car is being looked after. They're taking a quick trip to what would be potentially putting on a new set of boots, and Sanchez is already making his way out the pit lane. There he goes as he makes his way past our static camera and past the pit limiter line. But from what's going on there, we meanwhile come to 12th place man Austin Thomas. It's a distant view, but as he gets closer and closer there, in towards turn number 4, what you can see is the MSR green driver. Well, he's back in the recovery, trying to chase after the privateer of Sergei Pirog. And as they head up towards turn number 6, well, it has definitely been one of those races where, for Thomas at least, things have not gone right, and he now carries the whole weight of MSR green on his shoulders, whereas for Sergei Pirog, he's here to enjoy himself in the privateer machine. They both are, to be fair, here to enjoy themselves. themselves. But understandably, when you are a privateer, when you're an independent entry, you only really put the pressure on yourself, perhaps, and that your sponsors put on you. Meanwhile, when you represent a team, particularly when the team's had a bit of a nightmare day elsewhere in both its sister team Purple and also in the green outfit which you represent, you've got even more work to do. But here's some work that's going the way of Jack Mundy. He was given a breather for a lap, and now Elliot Court says, right, Jack, we're going to go toe-to-toe now. And, well, you've got to think that given Fabian Sanchez came into the pit lane, if they are all going to have to pit at some point, which we suspect they are, will we end up in a position whereby a number of these drivers dive to the pits at the end of this lap? Because all this fighting is only going to cost time. As Court there goes to the inside, and Mundy goes round. Was there contact? I'm not sure. I don't think there was. I think Mundy's got it wrong. His own volition as the brakes go hard on there for James Turnbull. Turnbull just about avoids being collected. Nick Peterson as well. In the end, well, there's a tap to the tyres between the two of them. Peterson just keeps it back on the road. And, well, I think there'll be hearts and mouths in the team garages there, particularly for what is the number 24. Just a simple reason Peterson really was a bystander who got caught up in all of that. But they've all survived it. And a big mistake there for Jack Mundy, and it has opened up the field even further. Austin Thomas, meanwhile, he's over the back now of Sergei Proc as they head over the crest of turn number 9 and in towards 10. But Thomas here falling back a little bit, and in fact, I think just lifting and coasting there into the braking zone rather than going full attack. And look at how he's struggling to get the grip down. Those tyres are shot in the MSR Green 35 as he's drifting left to right at the moment. We have got the elevation changes around there as well. That will cause the car to become unsettled. But as Zaher, Mundy and Peterson all come into the pit, I think that's a sign for everybody of what's coming here, which is a trip to the pit lane. So they're going to need a fresh set of boots if they want to carry on. But Thomas roaring his way through turn number 1 and looking to the inside here versus Proc. Proc keeps the space open for him. Contact between the two, and Sergei Proc goes wide, collapses the front left suspension. The front wing comes off the car, and well, that's definitely an instant there where I think Sergei Proc will be absolutely ranting when he gets out the car initially, and he'll need some people to calm him down if he's not cool-tempered enough already, because that was very unfortunate there. And, well, I can imagine the MSR Green team might be apologising for that one after the race. But meanwhile, Jack Mundy, as he carries on in 11th place, well, he's come out the pits. He's been serviced, as have several of them. So Fabian Sanchez has got out ahead of him, and that's the difference there. What a couple of laps and no fighting has made. Sanchez has completely leapfrogged Mundy, but he has not leapfrogged Shahi Zaher, who's got ahead of him. But keep in mind that Sanchez did have an extra 1.5 seconds in the pits, so that's the delta between them. But I can imagine there might have been some extra work done to the car there to just get it into the best possible spec they could. But going into his second stint then right now for Fabian Sanchez, all he needs to do is see if he can beat Jason Mayer to the exit of the pit lane, and then the likes of Elliot Court, Antonio Bianchi, Craig Brick and James Turnbull. And if he can, well then I think you'll feel as though it's worked out, and definitely it's a master plan. But as I was saying, Nav carries on. He's yet to pit, and he's deciding that he just wants to stay out there. And there's nothing wrong with that, to be fair. I think he's very happy with the way this race is going at the moment. And we will show you on the time tower, ladies and gentlemen, a number of pit stops that our drivers have made over the distance. So that way you get a good idea of exactly where everybody is in relation to each other, not just on the lap, but also with regards to strategy right now. And it's definitely a situation whereby Zaher is the first of our one-stoppers. Meanwhile, everyone else ahead of him has yet to stop, and we'll have to wait and see how they slot into the procession. But Jason Mayer has come out ahead of Fabian Sanchez, so Sanchez will immediately know he's got to do some work here to make a move, and we'll look around the outside. Of course, one advantage that Sanchez does have is that he's got full tyre temperature compared to Mayer, who needs to get it back on this outlap. Well, they're going to fight each other for a little bit, but Sanchez can't find his way through as we ride on board the nose camera on number 8 for Squid Gang Racing. He's continuing to push it here, but how far can he push things? We will see as he starts to think about a move potentially in towards turn number 9, but is it worth it? The answer is no. Instead, what he'll do is stay nice and tight, and in doing so, give himself the chance to even into turn 10. No, he doesn't go for it. Instead, it's going to be a run out of 11 into 12, surely, where the American driver will try and pick up the overspeed and make the progress. Antonio Bianchi and Craig Brick are both into the pit lane, so therefore, as Bianchi starts to leave his pit stall and Brick does the same, they've both been serviced, and Sanchez right now far back here, but heading along that start for the straight. Where are Bianchi and what is Brick? Well, here is Bianchi. He's left the pit lane already. Here comes Craig Brick as well. He makes his way on out, and as he does so, unfortunately not enough time there to get ahead of Mayer and Sanchez, so they clear him, but Jace Mayer right now is still bringing Sanchez along with him. Zaher and Bianchi. Well, hold up a second. Where's Antonio Bianchi? He's like a ghost. He's done a disappearing act, and then he's made his way off at turn number 2. He rejoins, bringing with him a load of gravel as well, and also some soil samples. overhauls, but as he does so right now, the number 17 driver has not had a happy trip to the weeds, I can tell you that, and I think he'll be absolutely gutted at that, because what was looking to be a brilliant bit of strategy has now fallen apart. But Sanchez on the inside there of Mayer for 7th place, and that's a move that's important to him, because Elliott Court's down to the pit lane, Turnbull's yet to pit, and so has Austin Thomas, but Court's the big name that Sanchez now needs to beat out of the pit lane. But will he be able to do so? Keep in mind that Sanchez pitted on lap number 13. Meanwhile, Court has come in at the end of lap number 18. It is a 5-lap delta, and well, tyre life-wise, that means that Court, once he's up to temperature and a bit later on in the race, he's going to have much fresher tyres by comparison. But roaring the whale around, and Elliott Court leaves the pit lane here. We look to the blimp camera. This is the best way we can tell you where they exactly are. There is Sanchez behind Zuhair, and meanwhile, Elliott Court has leapt ahead of all of them. It was a quick stop there for the number 1 driver, and more MSR have done a brilliant job in their respect, and DDK Racing Team have done a brilliant job in their pit stops, and it's particularly the DDK Racing Team driver here who's had one of the quickest pit stops of the day, and well, now that has given him the right to really be the leader in this group as he picks up some of the stone chips and gravel there that Bianchi brought back onto the road. But Court right now is the effective strategy leader until we know otherwise. The only exception will be Leo Delmar, who of course your race leader had a 7-second advantage at least before everyone started the pit stops. You would think in theory that Leo Delmar right now is completely in control of this race. But as Nick Peterson keeps himself in control thereabouts coming out to turn number 4. Meanwhile, we need to take a look back at some of the moments from earlier on in the race, which we have since not brought you replays of. And here we go, ladies and gents. It's time for a trip back in time, starting with lap number 15 and what happened to Jack Mundy. So this was Jack Mundy making his way into the hairpin at the time, went into the braking zone, and Elliott Court was on his inside and just had the rear lock up on him there. Went around, everyone had to take evasive action immediately, so that explains what happened to Jack Mundy. Big mistake of his own doing, and then everybody else having to react or thereabouts. And in fact, Austin Thomas, meanwhile, was side by side with Sergei Prop into the corner. Brilliant bit of fighting between these two as they made the way into and out of the sequence, and well, in the end, it was Sergei Prop who was able to defend at the time. We then had this only months ago on lap number 18. This was Antonio Bianchi, who had nailed his pit stop to leap ahead of a number of drivers. It was then behind him, none other than Shahi Zahair looking for the move, but Bianchi on cold tyres got onto the power too early. There wasn't the grip, and he's made the mistake that many have done at turn number 2, and he's now had to pay the price for it. So back to your live racing we come. As we do make our way back, well, even more to unfold as Leo Delmar is in the pit lane, I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen. Come the end of lap number 19, he's decided enough's enough. So James Turnbull and Xavier Zainab are the only drivers now yet to pit, as in fact Turnbull does exactly that, and Zainab also comes in. So they've gone as far as they can. They're going to split the race into what will be approximately 60-40 in terms of how many laps to do on the opening stint versus the latter stint. Delmar leaves the pits, but as he does so, well, this is going to be a limited amount of camera time that he's going to be afforded, given the fact he makes his way out. He's got nobody around him to worry about, and Elliott Court comes across that timeline, and the gap between Delmar and Court right now is 10 seconds or so. It's adjusting right now for the relative speeds on pit exit. In fact, it's 9.5 seconds, but the point being the DDK Racing Team driver here has got to go some if he wants to close down the race leader. He's really got to hurry at this point, and well, that is going to take him a long amount of time. As Shahi Zahair, meanwhile, running in third. Behind him, and Jason Mann, Fabian Sanchez and Craig Brick all behind. They're all queuing up and ready to battle with each other. But the driver in amongst all of that, who is definitely quite eager to make a good impression, is this man. It's Jack Mundy, the 7th place runner who was at one point fighting for the podium for so long. Well, he's now got to try and find a way to get involved. And well, if you're wondering why Austin Thomas is shown as having not pitted, that's a glitch on the time tower. He has pitted, and that's why he's fallen down to 13th, the last of our current runners. So the pit stops are all complete. Now it's most likely going to be a run to the finish here. But will it be a sprint? Probably not, because they've still got more than a sprint race worth of laps to do. As lap number 21 is going to give way to 22 shortly. And Shahi Zahair right now, well, he's going to try and do everything he can to refuse to give way as we ride on board looking back from the number 10. Now the first one who's going to try and find a way past will be Jason Mayer, the MSR purple driver. Looks one way then the other, and here he comes down the start for this straight, and he's going to need the overtake button because he hasn't had too much toe to make this happen. So Hare immediately responds. They're both now running at 189 miles an hour as they head in towards that opening corner. Equal speed, so Hare on the inside. Meanwhile, Mayer looking around the outside to inside, and there was a bit of contact there, and unfortunately, well, it looks as though Shahi Zahair's car just pranged by a tiny touch, and in the end to the barrier, and Zahair's race has all gone wrong. A very odd bit of contact between the two of them there. Some may say it was netcode, but with that, for Shahi Zahair, that's going to be absolutely gutting in his race. And suddenly, all of the effort he's put in has just completely collapsed him. So Jace Mann moves to third, with Fabian Sanchez and Craig Brick right behind, and we are now down to only 12 runners in this race, with everybody else in the pits either being serviced for repair work or alternatively having retired from the race. So it is definitely becoming a race of endurance right now, and who is going to last the distance here at Phillip Island? But it has been an incredible race as well over the entire the distance. I'm sure many of you agree, and well, as we've got more laps to come, we've surely got even more fighting to come. But let's take a quick look back at that instant between Shahi Zahair and Jace Mayer. So this was making the way in towards turn number 1, and it was side by side on entry, and well, the gap between them was quite noticeable, and just a tiny was registered tap there, and Shahi Zahair, once he was off the road, he was never coming back from that. This was the on-board perspective at the time from Jace Mayer as he made his way into the corner. 2 wide, they entered brilliant racing and went into the braking zone. And, well, I think both would argue they didn't make contact with each other, but they did. By looks of things, and the MSR purple driver, he got away with it, but you can see how untouched he was by it. So a very unfortunate incident between the two of them there. I don't think there's anything they could have done about that one, as we do head back to your live racing. Back. Well, Jace Mann we ride on board with still as he carries on the laps down to lap number 23, still chasing after Fabian Sanchez, and well, with Mayer right now in this position and Craig Brick right behind him. Well, one driver we do need to give a big shout out to and mention to is Brick, because he's done a fantastic job in the INCA Salsa machine, in the fact that over the course of this race so far, he's definitely been in the heat of the fighting, but he's rather uniquely not got too involved. He's been one of those drivers who's perhaps just been trying to pick up the pieces where everybody else has been seen a little bit of red. And there is an art to doing that, where everybody else is losing their head around you, you stay as cool as a cucumber, and the 777 driver here has done a fantastic job in doing so. Now, he's only got another 11 laps to go here, and he has got a shot at the podium if he gets this right, but will he be able to, or will he just settle for a top 5 finish? I think if he goes for the latter, that's going to be testament to what he's brought to the table here today. But of course, there is always that adage with regards to a racing driver. If you didn't have this adage, you wouldn't be a racing driver, which is I can always do better. There's always a fast lap out there, and there's always more points I can take. Jack Mundy, we're feeling that, because DeMonte Dotson is chasing after him little by little, and the Carlisle Tools machine right now is only 1.4 seconds behind. It's starting to match Mundy for pace, if not sparse him a little bit. And I wonder if Mundy's got a little bit of damage on the car after that prang with Shahi Zahair, and that's what's costing him the time. Meanwhile, coming back to Mayer versus Brick, well, Brick's getting the closest he has been for some time, but as they roar the way through, in fact, Mundy didn't have the prang with Shahi Zahair, I do apologise for that. That was Jace Mayer, getting my names confused here, but the point being right now that Jack Mundy's pace has definitely slid off a proverbial cliff, and there might be an issue with the number 15 car, but what there is no issue at the moment is Jace Mayer's speed, albeit Craig Brick is coming even faster, overtake buttons on for both of them, so as they go for the push to pass it, down towards turn 1, Brick's going to look on the inside initially. Now, will Mayer force this all the way around? Yes, he does, but he runs it all the way to the exit curb and breaking into turn number 2. Mayer defends it here. Brick goes with him deep into the corner, but they both make it. It's absolute poetry in motion here. And right now, well, I don't think either one will be wanting to write a sonnet, but one of them will be wanting to write a farewell to the other in terms of being able to break away at this point, because Fabian Sanchez now, we're looking in his rear view mirrors and noticing that these two are fighting, and that's a golden opportunity for the third place man to really compound and guarantee himself that final spot on the podium. Albeit coming through turn number 6, Mayer and Brick, they start to back off each other for a brief moment, although Mayer really makes a ham sandwich of the exit there at turn number 6. Didn't quite get the exit line there. He went a bit deep in the corner, used all the camber of the road, plus a bit more. And Brick can see an opportunity again to get a bit involved here as he comes down in towards the hairpin. Will he go for lunge? No, too far back, and also took a bit of entry curb in there. That's not something you want to do into turn number 10 in these Super Formula machines. That is a very high entry curb, and it'll shake the car around. Meanwhile, we have had a change of position for 11th place. Austin Thomas has just found his way past Xavier Sainav as they fight for best of the rest spot. And what will be the final points today, given the fact the points only go down to 12th place? So as long as all these drivers now finish the race, they will bring home what will be points if they haven't already done so from the sprint. So there'll be some happy faces with regards to that. Xavier Sainav in particular, he'll be pleased with that, given the fact he finished in 21st place in race number 1. Well, this race number 2 definitely rewarding him with more points now. And, well, the number 12 driver here definitely seeing things come together quite nicely for him. But back to Antonio Bianchi. Ever since he's off, he has not been able to move forward. He has got Nick Peterson for company. Meanwhile, Jack Mundy's off the road. Again, it's gone wrong for the number 15 driver. That's on the exit of turn number 2. I think turn 2 has once again claimed somebody into the proverbial black hole of gravel there off of Phillip Island. And right now, Austin Thomas comes on through, and Xavier Zainav will be very quickly approaching, but Mundy puts himself in the middle of the road, so Zainav has to dart to the inside into 4, and in the end goes very deep, and Mundy, just because he's down, he's not out for the count, and right now trying to fight this back, and moves back into length there, as Zainav at the end caught out slightly. But coming to Peterson versus Bianchi. Nick Peterson has found his way on through whilst we're engrossed in what was happening to Jack Mundy, and Peterson now in 7th place. Well, where can he go from here? It's 5 seconds to Dotson up the road from him, so that may not be easy. Instead, he may have to start looking rearward and hoping that Bianchi hasn't really got anything left in the tank. But Jace Mann and Craig Brick again fighting as they go on to lap number 27. The fight goes on between these two, and well, I think right now Jace Mayer has the measure of Brick, but has he got enough of the push to pass button to be able just to hold on a little bit longer? Because Brick has saved a lot of it up, as we're to understand it, and that's all been part of his strategy, which is save it for the last few laps. As they head on towards what will be the second half of the lap at the very front of the field, Leo Del Mar at this point, well, his advantage is being gradually whittled away. The gap between himself and Elliott Court has dropped from 9.5 seconds to 8.4 seconds over the last 6 laps. However, it's the last lap in particular where Del Mar's lost a lot of time. He lost 6 tenths to Court, whereas in the other laps he's been losing 1 or 2 tenths at a time. Now, is that a sign of a problem? Is that a sign of some mistakes creeping in? That was a 12.463 for Del Mar. Let's see what Court's able to do this time. Is it a response from Del Mar to Court's pace? Because the timeline comes at your number 1 driver, it's a 12.63, so therefore, yes, it was a response there from Del Mar to Court. So I think Del Mar just measuring his pace and knowing what he doesn't need to do here is absolutely min-max every lap. All he needs to do is make sure that some of his laps are absolutely pitch perfect, whereas others he can afford to back off. Meanwhile, no backing off here between Peterson and Bianchi. Bianchi looking around the outside in towards turn 1. And well, Peterson defends. Bianchi does sweep round, gets into the head of the position before turn number 2. So Bianchi takes that for now, but I think Peterson will be thinking to himself, I can always put him under some pressure. I can always get him to touch a little bit more gravel later on if I can keep that pressure on. But right on board here with the arriving driver, racing driver, of course sponsored by the Honda Racing Corporation, HRC. We're down into the braking zone, and Bianchi does exactly what we said Peterson would be hoping for. He goes deep at turn number 4, but Peterson himself has to give him space, and in doing so, gets a little bit too eager with the loud pedal. That's the throttle coming out of turn number 4. So Peterson in the end gets it back together, but Bianchi does hold the place. So both drivers right now, I think this is a race that has definitely taken a lot out of both of them, and right now they are both just trying to keep it together for the closing laps. There's not long left to go. We've got 6 laps left, and as we do see Bianchi there going very wide out of turn number 9, I don't think there's much tyre life left either. I think they've just absolutely driven to the limit for so long, even on these fresher tyres, which they've taken since the pit stop, and right now both drivers here just are struggling to keep it together, but in doing so, well, it's producing absolutely entertaining racing, but I think it's something they'll both be thinking about going into the future rounds. But here right now, Peterson's thinking about the move around the outside again into turn 1. He's trying to do what Bianchi did to him only a lap ago, and well, he's trying to repeat it, trying to essentially copycat, and well, it's a perfect copycat replica there as he gets the inside into 2, and Bianchi can't quite get back at him, but now making the way in towards turn number 4, we look back from the rear of Peterson's car, and what you can see is Bianchi there, no overtake or push to pass active, and well, instead he's just looking to the inside there, but that's more of what is a fake out, and Peterson goes deep as a result, and Bianchi tries to get the power down the exit, but unfortunately it's such a tight exit there, to get the power down aggressively will be to see the car go round. So Peterson in the end is able to hold him at bay, but Antonio Bianchi here, for as good as Peterson's giving, he's also getting it back, and Bianchi is delivering as they come in towards the next section. But behind them, James Turnbull is closing. Turnbull is closing at 2 seconds a lap when these two fight right now. He is 1.9 seconds behind. He's come from 7 seconds back over the last 4 laps. There he is. He's going to be within attacking distance soon. And Turnbull, I think, would fancy his chances here for what would be the RAC GP. I do believe that should be Raccoon GP. We'll get that fixed for next time, ladies and gentlemen, as he makes his way around The 203 driver here right now definitely on a mission as Peterson and Bianchi fight again. And, well, Bianchi looks one way, then the other. He's trying to throw dummies there. He's trying to send mixed signals. They both know that if they keep this up, all they're going to do is keep swapping the places back and forth. So Bianchi is now trying to make Peterson second-guess himself here. It really is high-speed stakes between these two. And how they can do this at almost 200 miles an hour into the opening corner, it defies belief, ladies and gentlemen. But there you go. It's absolutely brilliant between them. And Turnbull behind is watching this right now, probably thinking, what on earth are they playing at in front? I want to get involved in that. I want to show them how it's done. And Austin Thomas is only himself 2.4 seconds behind, albeit he's a little bit off the pace of Turnbull. But if Turnbull gets engrossed in this and he starts fighting, you could almost say that Austin Thomas may have a chance of getting into the top 10 even further from his 10th place at the moment, because here he is, the MSR green driver. And, well, it definitely has been one of those races where it's fallen silent for him, but perhaps there's going to be a last shout for positions right before the very end. But to the front we come. And Leo Delmar and Elliot Court continue to exchange laps back and forth. Delmar a 13.0, Court of 12.9. A 10th gained in the favour of Court. But to be fair, when we only have 4 laps left, including the one they're currently on, that's not going to be enough time for what we Elliot Court to close up. Meanwhile, Bianchi this time engages with Peterson into turn 1 much earlier, halfway down the start-finish straight. And, well, as he clears him, now, will he get it settled under braking into turn 2? Yes, he does. But he takes a lot of curb there, and that curb does not offer grip, and that causes the car to shake out and understeer wide in the end. Bianchi thought he could power out of it, and suddenly Turnbull picks up the place. So James Turnbull now overtake button as well. He sees that Peterson, with all that fighting, is now going to be vulnerable. And, well, I would imagine that Turnbull at this point is probably thinking to himself, you know what, there's still a place here as he slips a little bit wide at turn number 4. And we can see there the light above the car gently flashing. What that means is that he's not using it, but it is running low. It starts to flash when they run low. I believe it's less than 25% remaining. So right now Turnbull will need to use that. But of course it'll mean that Peterson will see it in his rear view mirrors. He'll see that flashing light and realise that now's the time. If he is going to hold on, he's got to try and force Turnbull to overdrive it. Meanwhile, Austin Thomas is over the back of Bianchi, who's trying to survive just that little bit longer in the fight for 9th place. And Thomas getting closer and closer. Overtake button on here as he tries to get the power down. And, well, Thomas is absolutely throwing everything at this. As we ride on board, overtake on, you can see it at the bottom center of your screen, the MSR green driver. Full beans here as they make their way down the start for the straight. It's going to come from very far back. Bianchi goes defensive. Thomas switches the outside here to why they enter the corner. As they exit here, will Thomas still be there on the inside? Yes, he will. And for Austin Thomas, that's going to be enough for 9th place, surely, as Bianchi doesn't find a way to get back at him, and Thomas seals the deal at exit. Nick Peterson, meanwhile, to defend versus James Turnbull, who's waited for so long for this opportunity. And as they come down to the hairpin, it's going to be Turnbull on the inside here. Too wide they enter, too wide they exit. But in the end, Peterson gets washed out wide. And it was a big slide for Austin Thomas. He just about grabs it back together, and Austin Thomas holds off Bianchi just for a little bit longer. But Antonio Bianchi is not going away. This race isn't going away between them, and it's absolutely getting exciting the final couple of laps. It may not be for the win, but for these drivers, this will feel like a win in terms of some points gained. And meanwhile, our leader is down to the penultimate lap. But as they all calm down for a brief moment, well, I can imagine when they come down the start-finish straight, this is going to suddenly explode to life again. And, well, Demonte Dotson, who is 9 seconds up the road now in 6th place, he won't be worrying about this anymore. He can afford to back off at this point, and he already has. In fact, his lap times now are into the mid-13s. He's completely backed off and decided just to focus on bringing his race home. Turnbull has broken away from Peterson on the exit of turn 12. Meanwhile, Austin Thomas still has Bianchi behind him. I don't think Bianchi has got much left right now in terms of chasing after him. He's going to try for something here into turn number 2, but Thomas puts the car right in the middle of the road and says, what you going to do? And in the end, the answer is not much, although Thomas does go deep. Bianchi does get past him at the end, so Bianchi does get it back there. Austin Thomas just a little bit too eager into the corner, but that eagerness not coming off well for Thomas. Meanwhile, back to your leader. We do have one more lap to go here for Leo Delmar, who has put it all together. This has been a masterstroke thus far. He's only got to do it one more time right now, and what was a 4th place start, an early lead taken when everybody else was fighting each other, well, this will be converted into a first win of the season, and Delmar will be absolutely over the moon with this, as Elliot Court, meanwhile, continues to chase, but the gap is 9 seconds, and that gap is staying static. With everything that Delmar and Court are throwing at each other, they are both equaling each other on times, and Fabian Sanchez back in 3rd place right now. Well, he's got Jace Mayer 1.2 seconds behind, but something tells me that Mayer's not going to be close enough when we get to the final laps ending, but we'll see, because Mayer right now is still going. Sanchez actually had a bit of a poor run through turn 2. That gap did come down for a brief moment. In fact, that's the concertina of the corner, two different lines between the drivers. And meanwhile, Bianchi and Thomas, and they've caught up to Peterson, but it's Bianchi who defends right now versus Austin Thomas into turn one. Thomas back on the inside, under brake it here. And Bianchi goes deep again, but does he find the grip? He does at the rear of the car, sliding, it's twitching every which way, and Austin Thomas does squeeze on through. And now will they catch up to Peterson, who's been left behind by Turnbull? Nick Peterson is struggling at the end, he's got nothing left to give, and Thomas and Bianchi will want that place. Well, we'll have to leave them, ladies and gentlemen, because making his way out of the final corner, it has been an absolutely faultless drive from fourth place to the lead for Leo Del Mar, and it's a faultless victory in the feature for your number 21 driver by 9.5 seconds at the end over your defending champion of Elliott Court for the INCA Racing Team. He takes the runner-up spot, and then it will be Fabian Sanchez, who's come all the way through from 10th to 3rd in an absolutely energetic and frantic race. He does the end just finish ahead of Jace Mayer, who brings home full for MSR Purple, and it'll be Craig Brick, who takes home a 5th place there, a well-earned one, with 8 seconds to Monte Dotson, who's very pleased with that 6th place. You can see it in the way he's got across the line there, weaving his way through. James Turnbull will be on home 7th place shortly in the end, just out of gas at the finish, ahead of Nick Peterson, with Antonio Bianchi and Austin Thomas battling to the finish line. And I think Austin Thomas has just got Antonio Bianchi, and that will complete your top 10. Jack Mundy was 11th in the end, and then it will be your last finisher of this race. We had 23 starters. We are only going to see 12 finishers, of which they will all be on the lead lap, and your last finisher will be Xavier Zainav, who does make it to the finish line there in the number 12. Well, what a race, ladies and gentlemen. What a way to open up our season here at the Phillip Island Grand Prix Circuit in Australia for season 17 of the League Zero Formula Series. It's been an incredible pair of races, and whereas it was Finley Fitzsimmons who led the way in race number 1 of the day, it will be Leo Del Mar who's taken the feature race victory, and, well, he'll be very pleased with that. But with that, we take a look to the scenic view and the results of your race with it. These, of course, provisional, subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries, and here they are. So after 34 laps of intense racing, Leo Del Mar took the win by himself, by his lonesome for Odent Racing, 9.3 seconds ahead of DDK Racing's Elliott Court. And in the end, Del Mar, all he needed to do was take the lead, and the fighting from everybody behind gave him the gap to victory. Elliott Court, meanwhile, after the difficulties for so many drivers, particularly when it all went wrong for none other than what was Finley Fitzsimmons and also Robert Nobles and Elliott Rolls right at the start, well, there was a calling for somebody to finish second, and it was his calling that he answered to. Fabian Sanchez would argue that he had the chance to finish second if it were not for some mistakes. The Squid Gang Racing driver in the end having to settle for the 3rd place spot on the podium, but he was just ahead of Jace Mayer at the finish line, with the MSR Purple driver coming on strong as the distance went on, but in and off for the podium finish. And the 77 was given away to the 777 of Craig Brick, the INCA Salsa racing driver there, bringing on home a top 5, and a great effort from him. Keep your eyes out for him as the season goes on, so I think some podiums are definitely on their way at some point. He was ahead of Demont Dotson, with the Formula American Racing Team driver completing that 6th place run, 8 seconds ahead of James Turnbull. The Raccoon GP driver in the end in the 203 couldn't quite make his way into the top 5, but he'll feel as though it was a victory in itself to stay ahead of Nick Peterson, Austin Thomas and Jack Mundy, with the Arrive and Drive Racing, MSR Green and Privateer drivers completing the top 10. The Briton of Mundy gave way to the best of the rest driver Xavier Zainav for Odent Racing, and then it was classified a lap down at the finish there for Antonio Bianchi. I wonder if there was a penalty awarded after the race due to instant points, but he was listed as 12th, and the INCA 51C driver was your last finisher of the race, with everybody else retiring, and that included Shahi Zaher, Carlos Balinas, Sergei Porok, Catherine Sweat, Arturo Mayorga, Gareth McAllister, Shade Prophet, Renison Lowe, and also there Finley Fitzsimmons, Robert Nobles and Elliott Rolls, with those three having some very nasty open-up incidents. None more so than Robert Nobles and Elliott Rolls, who had it all go wrong before they even cleared the start-finish line. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that brings our racing for this season opener to a close here in Australia. An incredible race, no doubt about it, to end, following up from an incredible race to start off this broadcast. But with that, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about the League Zero Formula Series and how you can get on the grid and become a part of it, we do recommend you go to the official website for the series, and that is www.leaguezero.net, where you'll find out all the information you need to get yourself onto the grid and get racing in one of the premier open wheel racing series in the world. We'd also like to say a big thank you at this moment to our title sponsor who's helped us present today, and that is none other than INCA Salsa. And if you are are a fan of salsa and are looking to taste the very best, then look no further than INCA Salsa. Containing only the freshest ingredients, no gluten and no added sugar, just like the finest authentic salsa should. Once you've had a taste of the incredibly familiar recipe salsa from Julio Espino, you will never want to taste any of the rest. To put yourself in pole position to enjoy the best salsa you will ever have, head to INCA Salsa's official website, and that is at shop-inca-salsa.myshopify.com today to find out more. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we also need to say a thank you to our other series sponsors of MSR Performance Engineering and also Team Goon Squad, I should say. And now we look ahead to next time, because in round number 2, well, we make our way all the way to the US of A, and it is the Miami International Autodrome that plays host for our second round. The racing will occur on Thursday, the 15th of January 2026, but we come invite you and suggest that you come join us on the Friday, the 16th of January, as we present all the racing action once again as if it were live, and we'll see how the story continues. It's anybody's guess who'll be leading the championship after the madness of our races today, but one thing's for certain: Finley Fitzsimmons has laid down a marker at being the fastest driver in qualifying, and definitely one who can run away at the head of the field should he get the chance in the race. But keep your eyes out for the likes of none other than Leo Del Mar, who's got the consistency, Fabian Sanchez, who's got the race pace, and also the likes of Elliot Court, the defending champion, who today didn't quite get to flex his muscle as much as he would have liked to. But who will flex it in Miami? We will see then. Until then, we've been the League Zero Formula Series. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and until next time, we're going to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.